Chapter 157. The Skeleton Technique. Sumo used to think it was useless because it wasn't a summoning technique. In reality, that was the case. After mastering the second level of the undying energy, one can use the skeleton technique. However, Sumo never used it before. The main reason was because he didn't have any skeletons. Taking a step back, even if Sumo had one or two skeletons, how could normal skeletons fight? But today was different. Inside the Valley of Death, there were 18 skeletons that were far more powerful than original level treasures. If Sumo could control any one of them, then his fighting abilities would multiply. The Sumo today was at the peak of the intermediate stage of the completion level. If he could have an immortal skeleton to help him, then he would be like a tiger that grew wings. He could fight against someone of the advanced stage of the completion level, or even the peak of the completion level. Thinking about this, Sumo's heart heated up. Therefore, he first arrived before the 81st skeleton. Putting away the bamboo pole, Sumo sat in a lotus position. Then, he placed a red dust fan on his waist. Sumo formed a hand seal. The incantation for the skeleton art was actually very simple. The difficult part was that it required the undying energy as its foundation. Therefore, to use the skeleton technique, one must have the undying energy. But the Sumo today had already mastered the undying energy. Theoretically speaking, there shouldn't be a problem for him to use the skeleton technique. However, Sumo formed 3 hand seals in a row. Light shone everywhere. The golden skeleton in front of him didn't move at all. Sumo was a little embarrassed. Luckily, there was no one else in the Valley of Death other than him. Or else it would be embarrassing. Like an idiot, he continued to form hand seals at a skeleton. The way he gesticulated might have been a little ridiculous, but it was completely ineffective. Could there be a problem with this skeleton technique? Sumo was depressed. However, on second thought, perhaps the last skeleton's level was too high. After all, this was a golden skeleton and it was the closest one to the ancient temple. Therefore, Sumo turned back. He headed towards the 80th skeleton. However, now that there was no fog, it was not a matter of a few dozen steps, but a very long walk. Then, Sumo repeated the process of forming the hand seals. Again, he did it 3 or 4 times in a row. Unfortunately, the results were the same. Sumo shook her head and continued to run towards the next immortal bone. To put it simply, none of the 9 golden skeletons had any reaction. Only when Sumo opens and closes the red dust fan will their bodies flash with a red light. However, Sumo's skeleton technique was useless against them. Sumo felt discouraged. However, there were still 9 skeletons ahead. The 9 skeletons that weren't covered in golden light might be able to do it. Therefore, Sumo once again walked towards the 72nd skeleton, full of hope. However, the ending was very cruel. The white skeleton was just as arrogant and cold, unmoved by his words. Phew! Sumo couldn't help but let out a long sigh. This time, he only used this skeleton spell once. That was because he felt that his hand was starting to go bald. It was really depressing. However, it had all come to this. Sumo had to try all the immortal bones no matter what. He had to be patient and grit his teeth. Persevere. In the end, Sumo walked step by step until he reached the last white skeleton, which was the 64th immortal bone. All the previous white skeletons didn't move at all. Actually, at this point, Sumo didn't have much hope. He sat cross-legged in front of the white skeleton and forced himself to be alert. He was really mentally and physically exhausted from this journey. After using the skeleton technique for more than 30 times, if it wasn't for the fact that he had an endless supply of undying energy, he wouldn't have been able to hold on. Most importantly, Sumo already had no confidence. Starting, forming the seal, circulating energy, these 3 steps, Sumo followed the normal path. Although Sumo was tired, his dantian sea was still full. This was the power of the undying energy. It was an invincible technique at the same level. Phew! Looking again, Sumo's hands were glowing with mysterious light. It was extremely dazzling. However, Sumo's eyes were listless, because he had seen this scene more than 30 times. There shouldn't be any problem with his technique, but it just didn't work on these immortal bones. Perhaps the level of these immortal bones is too high. Sumo could only think this way. He even regretted not trying the skeleton spell when he first entered the Silent Death Valley. This last one, in theory, should be the weakest immortal skeleton in front of him. However, it was still much more powerful than the ones that Sumo had fused with. Therefore, Sumo didn't have much hope. However, fate was often like this. When you were about to give up, there were often twists and turns. Therefore, many things would succeed if one persisted for a while longer. Crack, crack. The last skeleton didn't act according to Sumo's wishes as he had imagined. However, when Sumo's mystic light fell on the white skeleton, the arm that had been put down was slowly raised. On that arm, there was a faint, almost indistinguishable thread. That was Sumo's control. Sumo was startled. Then he was instantly energized. With a thought, he activated the technique in his hand with all his might. Crack, crack. The skeleton's arm moved again. Although the skeleton's movements were a bit mechanical, far from what Sumo had imagined. However, this at least gave Sumo great encouragement. This proved that there was no problem with the skeleton spell. Based on Sumo's current situation, he could also control the skeletons. However, it seemed that he still needed to continue to analyze and practice. Therefore, Sumo's crazed cultivation was triggered. He sat cross-legged next to the 64th skeleton and concentrated on practicing the skeleton spell. Since it was possible, Sumo would cultivate it to the end. The sun rose and the moon set. The crow flew and the rabbit left. Inside the Silent Death Valley, 9 days and 9 nights passed. Other than his hands, Sumo didn't move at all. He focused all of his attention on the skeleton art. The skeleton spell was similar to the puppet spell. This spell was different from controlling spirit beasts. Spirit beasts needed the master and the spirit beast to become one. Then it could be controlled with a single thought. The skeleton spell was similar to the Imperial Sword technique. Not only did it require the user to establish a connection with the skeleton, it also required the user to control spirit energy and various techniques. Because, fundamentally speaking, skeletons no longer had any intelligence. Sumo understood this, so he continued to practice. 9 days and 9 nights. Sumo couldn't even count how many times he formed the skeleton seal. His hands were starting to feel numb. Remember, he was a core formation cultivator. Thus, it could be seen how crazy Sumo was. His eyes were blood red. The undying chi in his Dan sea was boiling. At this time, Sumo once again used the skeleton spell. Then, he looked at the white skeleton, which suddenly leaped into the air. Even though it was like a zombie, the skeleton flew dozens of feet away. Then, one of its hands turned into a claw and fiercely grabbed a 3 feet tall boulder next to it. Boom! Crack! Poof! A 3 feet tall boulder, and it was a boulder from the Silent Death Valley. A strange place and strange boulder. It must not be ordinary. However, it was turned into dust by the white skeleton. Dust flew everywhere. The skeleton spell was completed. Chapter 158. Hard work pays off. Inside the Silent Death Valley, after 9 days and 9 nights, Sumo's skeleton technique was finally successful. It should be noted that those white skeletons that transformed into Sumo's Dan C could resist nascent soul-level magic treasures, let alone these skeletons with golden light. Every skeleton here was a rare treasure. Sumo changed the hand seals a few more times, and the skeleton followed Sumo's hand seals, basically hitting wherever he pointed. However, sometimes its movements were a bit stiff, but Sumo believed that as long as he practiced diligently, he would achieve great success. At this time, Sumo held the secular fan in his hand and shook it naturally. Swish! The white skeleton's body flashed with a red light again. Sumo's heart moved, suddenly thinking of something. So, he held the secular fan in his hand. Using the fan as a finger, he formed a skeleton seal. Seal technique. Whoosh! The white skeleton moved as fast as the wind, as fast as lightning. For a moment, Sumo felt that the skeleton's movement had increased several times. The white skeleton seemed to have suddenly come alive. Sumo was shocked. Could it be that this secular fan could command these skeletons? Thinking of this, Sumo continued to use the ancient fan to point at the white skeleton, and it was extremely effective. Under the situation where Sumo used the ancient fan to form hand seals, the white skeleton was actually comparable to a grand cultivator. Sumo's heart was overjoyed. Collect! Sumo was excited, casually closed the ancient fan, and lightly shouted. Originally, Sumo was just acting on a whim and instinctively shouted. However, he did not expect that this shout actually made the immortal skeleton directly turn into a white light and enter the ancient fan. Invisible and traceless. Sumo was slightly stunned. In fact, just now he was still thinking about how to take this immortal skeleton away. Who would have thought that the red dust ancient fan would actually be able to absorb the white skeleton? Strange. Sumo hurriedly opened the ancient fan to have a look. However, the red dust fan did not change at all. However, the skeleton sitting cross-legged on the fan seemed to have a hint of luster. A white skeleton attached itself to it. Go! Sumo waved her fan again. Who? When he looked again, the skeleton drawing that was sitting cross-legged suddenly emitted a bright light. The 64th skeleton actually flew out and hovered in midair. What good fortune! Sumo praised. The ancient mortal fan actually had such power? It seemed that he had overlooked this ancient fan from the Cave of Five Wheels. Perhaps its power was not limited to just that. Sumo began to re-evaluate this ancient fan that was once called ominous. Return. Sumo put the white skeleton back into the ancient fan. He could release and retract them with ease. Then, Sumo looked at the 65th skeleton in the distance and smiled. Needless to say, each of these skeletons was a treasure. Secular fan. Can you still collect them? Sumo approached the 65th skeleton. Yes. Sumo pointed at the skeleton with the secular fan. However, the skeleton did not respond. Sumo could not help but smile. It seemed that there could only be one skeleton in the secular fan. Sure enough, after Sumo summoned the 64th skeleton, he only needed to collect the 65th skeleton. Hiss! Sumo took a deep breath, then frowned and pondered. At present, for him, of course, it was more convenient to put the 64th skeleton into the ancient fan. Because he could summon it to battle at any time, with the ancient fan in hand, he was like a fish in water. But how do I take the rest of the skeletons? The things in the ancient temple, Sumo did not dare to casually take away. But in the silent Death Valley, the remaining skeletons, Sumo had been thinking about it. After all, he had already absorbed 63 skeletons. Even if he took the rest, it should not be a big problem. The key was how? Sumo first took out an empty storage pouch. Collect. Sumo held the storage pouch in the air, wanting to collect the 65th skeleton. However, the skeleton did not respond at all. Sumo went over, wanting to move the skeletons with his bare hands, but it was impossible. They were as steady as a rock, as if they had taken root. Sumo smiled bitterly. However, all of this was within his expectations. If these skeletons could be easily collected, then they would not be called immortal bones. Then, how do I take away these precious immortal bones? The secular fan could only take one, and among all the skeletons, the most powerful was undoubtedly the 81st. That was a real golden skeleton. However, at present, Sumo could freely control the 64th. It was not a good choice. He was in a dilemma. Most importantly, Sumo did not want to choose at all. He wanted to take away all the immortal bones. Thus, Sumo began to look through his storage pouch. Sumo's storage pouch was filled with all sorts of miscellaneous items. It was truly not a small number. This included the 5 rounds of rewards that he received, as well as the storage pouch that 7 senior sister gave him, etc. Talismans, elixirs, and all kinds of treasures. However, there were no treasures that could be used for storage. Back then, he received an original infant-level elixir bottle, but it was limited to storing elixirs. It could not be used to store skeletons. Sumo almost rummaged through all of his storage pouches, but in the end, he could not find anything suitable to collect the skeletons. However, at this moment, Sumo suddenly found a tattered cloth pouch at the bottom of one of the storage pouches. Sumo had not taken out that tattered cloth pouch for a long time, because it was one of the 3 treasures that he had when he was a beggar. A tattered bamboo pole, a tattered copper bowl, and a tattered cloth pouch. The first two, because they had been discovered to have special properties, Sumo often used them, especially the tattered copper bowl, which had evolved into a soul depository cauldron. Sumo's previous cultivation relied on it. However, Sumo had never found anything special about that tattered cloth pouch. Today, Sumo saw it and took it out. Sumo was a nostalgic person. Therefore, even if it was useless, he did not throw it away. At this moment, Sumo had an inexplicable hope in his heart. The tattered bamboo pole and the tattered copper bowl were treasures, so logically speaking, this tattered cloth pouch should not be ordinary. Today he would try again. Therefore, Sumo held on to a glimmer of hope and shook the tattered cloth bag against the wind. Whoosh! The cloth pouch fluttered in the wind, but there were still a few patches on it, and there were even many stains. Collect. Sumo's voice was not loud, because he did not have much confidence. However, something that shocked Sumo happened. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 65th white skeleton, with bursts of whistling, turned into a white light and plunged into the tattered cloth pouch. At that moment, Sumo was dumbfounded, and what shocked Sumo the most was the sea. She saw that the tattered cloth pouch directly flew into the air and then fluttered. Whoosh! 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 The remaining 16 skeletons in the silent Death Valley seemed to be summoned. In order, they flew into the tattered cloth pouch one after another, until the last golden skeleton flew in. The tattered cloth pouch withered and fell back into Sumo's hands. Sumo was a little dumbfounded. Opening the cloth pouch, there were a total of 17 skeletons, like shadows, all gathered in the tattered cloth pouch. However, they did not take up much space, and they were weightless. Chapter 159. The 17 skeletons were arranged in a ragged bag like shadows. Some of them were even moving around leisurely. That was a scene that shocked Sumo the most. The entire ragged bag was weightless. This ragged bag was actually so powerful. What level of storage artifact was this? Go! Sumo's mind moved. Whoosh! The first skeleton that flew into the ragged bag turned into a white light and landed in the silent Death Valley again. Keep! Sumo shook the ragged bag. The skeleton turned into a streak of white light and flew back. It went back and forth a few times, and it worked every time. Then, Sumo reached into the ragged bag with one hand. He clearly felt that he had grabbed the white bones, but in fact there was nothing there. There seemed to be another world inside the ragged bag that had completely changed the space. Although Sumo still couldn't use the skeleton technique to control these immortal skeletons, the ragged bag allowed Sumo to keep them freely. All of this was enough. Sumo believed that one day, as long as his cultivation level increased, he would definitely be able to command these 18 immortal skeletons to fight at the same time. How powerful would that be? Would he be invincible? Ragged bamboo pole, ragged copper bowl, ragged bag. These three treasures actually had shocking power. This was a great opportunity. Sumo was very satisfied, and he even felt a bit smug. This trip to the silent Death Valley was definitely not in vain. The current Sumo wasn't just at the Foundation Establishment realm. He had directly formed his gold core and obtained the 18 immortal skeletons. At the same time, he discovered the power of the red dust ancient fan and the power of the ragged bag. This trip to the silent Death Valley had even changed Sumo's state of mind. Who am I? This was the question that Sumo would ask himself from time to time. It could be said that Sumo was no longer the former Sumo, who only knew about 5 wheels and select insect. His cultivation level was higher, and his horizons were broader. The mirror image in the sky and the dream in the ancient temple gave him a vague hope. Were they all hinting at something? His future should be even further. Of course, Sumo would not ponder over these things all the time, nor would she be ambitious and daydream all day long. He just hid it in his heart, but his heart was open a window. Light from different worlds had entered. For now, he still had to return to 5 wheels. Senior Sister Mu. Thinking of Mu Jinghong, Sumo's heart ached, because the tragedy of that day was still vivid in his mind. It was highly likely that Senior Sister Mu had already fallen. Sumo had yet to repay his kindness, and yet to return the favor. Rousing her spirits, Sumo brushed the dust off her body and put away the tattered cloth bag and the mortal dust ancient fan. She prepared to leave Silent Death Valley. Within Silent Death Valley, there was no day or night. Sumo felt that she had been here for quite some time. Therefore, he had to rush back to Five Wheels immediately. When he first came here, he had Mu Jinghong's purple teleportation array. Now that Mu Jinghong was gone, the journey of 70,000 kilometers was not a short one. Sumo still remembered what second senior brother had told her. Within 100 days, she would definitely return to Windwheel Mountain. Estimating the time, Sumo felt that she would definitely not miss the date. At this moment, Sumo suddenly raised her head. Only then did he realize that everything in Silent Death Valley had actually quietly changed. The ancient deserted village, or rather, the old city, had disappeared at some point. The funnel-shaped valley had also disappeared. It seemed that after Sumo collected all the 81 white skeletons, everything in Silent Death Valley had changed. In front of Sumo was an empty valley. He was actually standing on flat ground. Not far to the north was that ancient temple. From the outside, the ancient temple did not seem to have changed at all. Not far to the south was the dilapidated ancient array made of rubble. Black pillars stood in great numbers, and stones lay everywhere. The entire Silent Death Valley seemed to have shrunk. In other words, after Sumo collected the 81 white skeletons, she had changed the space-time structure here. Time and space had all changed. Sumo did not carefully ponder over these things. Now, he was somewhat eager to return. Thus, he headed straight for the entrance of Silent Death Valley. Everything was very smooth, just like the first time he entered Silent Death Valley. Soon, he left Silent Death Valley. Outside the valley, it was quiet and still. There was nothing. There were no traces of the great battle back then. That path was also the place where he met Mu Jinghong. However, the beauty was not there, and he did not even know if she was dead or alive. Looking back, at the entrance of the valley, there were still stone walls on both sides, as if they had been split by an axe. The cliff walls were smooth and even emitted a faint white light, straight as a sword, angrily pointing to the sky. It was still ancient, majestic, and magical. Gods come to bury. Immortals come to return to solitude. The 8 ancient seals were simple and unadorned, pitch black like ink, and still emitted an overflowing ancient intent. Sumo quietly looked at those words and sighed in his heart. Gods, immortals, none of them dare to take a step forward. Then why can I come and go as I please in Silent Death Valley? What right do I have? Who exactly am I? Sumo asked himself bitterly in his heart. Then outside Silent Death Valley, Sumo respectfully bowed deeply. To him, this was a blessed land. After all, he was filled with gratitude and respect. See you again. Sumo looked at the entrance of Silent Death Valley and smiled. He would definitely come again. Because there must be more secrets in the ancient temple of Silent Death Valley. Sumo really wanted to know who he was. End of the ceremony. Sumo directly took out the Sky Wheel Immortal boat and leaped onto it. He wanted to leave the Holy Wheel ancient ruins first and then go to Five Wheels. However, in his hurry, he actually forgot Mu Jinghong's words. In the Holy Wheel ancient ruins, flying treasures could not be used, or it might alarm the ancient souls or other unknown beings. The Sky Wheel Immortal boat traveled 100 miles in an instant. However, just after traveling 100 miles, a black light flew out for a large crack in the valley. Whoosh, whoosh, that black light went straight for Sumo's Sky Wheel Immortal boat. When he came, he was safe and sound. On the way back, Sumo did not pay much attention to it, and just wanted to hurry on with his journey. That black light attacked. Sumo was shocked, and he controlled the Sky Wheel Immortal boat to dodge. However, he was still a bit too slow. Bang! That black light hit the side of the Sky Wheel Immortal boat. That Sky Wheel Immortal boat was a nascent soul-level Dharma treasure. However, this time, it also swayed and almost overturned. At this time, Sumo then remembered Mu Jinghong's words. He immediately put away the Sky Wheel Immortal boat and floated in the void. However, it was too late. A black light shot out, and then a black shadow stood in front of Sumo. It was really a black shadow. It was a pure black shadow. It looked like a shadow of a person, but it had no face at all. Its head was drooping, and its shoulders were high. It floated faintly with an aura of death, but behind the black shadow was a pair of wings. It looked a bit like the cultivator in red that Sumo had seen in the mirror. Ancient souls. Sumo's heart skipped a beat. However, that black shadow did not seem to be of high level, because Sumo did not feel any pressure. That black shadow was equivalent to a cultivator of the beginning stage of the core formation realm. Which world's living being disturbs my sleep? The black shadow's voice was hoarse and light. His question was very interesting. Which world's living being? Sumo found it funny and casually said, Pure Land Realm. Pure Land Realm? The black shadow seemed to hesitate, then said, Within the infinite worlds, where is there a pure land? Chapter 160. The black shadow of the dead soul attacked, but it was actually silent. Sumo only felt a black shadow flash in front of him, and then he felt an aura of death. In reality, Sumo was not used to that kind of battle. Sumo's bamboo pole was already in his hand. As he dodged to the side, he used total annihilation. However, Sumo was startled, because he watched as his bamboo pole swept past the waist of the black shadow of the dead soul. However, the black shadow departed soul did not stop at all. The bamboo pole merely swept past. It felt like a normal person hitting a shadow with a bamboo pole. It was useless. However, the black shadow spirit was definitely not as simple as an ordinary shadow. Fine. The black shadow soul let out a low growl. Then, he looked at one of the black ghost's wings, which instantly expanded. Then, with a sudden movement, they transformed into thousands of long black snakes that charged straight at Sumo. Those black snakes were like ropes. Sumo hurriedly retreated. At the same time, Sumo slapped his storage pouch and took out hundreds of fire talismans and wind talismans. Wind and fire overlapped. Even a completion-level cultivator would not dare to be careless. The sky was filled with fire, and it surrounded the black snakes. Sizzle, sizzle. In the air, the fire made noises. However, in an instant, those long black snakes flew out from the flames. Unharmed, they charged at Sumo again. Sumo frowned. Luckily, he was a completion-level cultivator now, or else he would have panicked if those two attacks were ineffective. Quick! Sumo formed a hand seal. In an instant, a white light emitted from her fingertips. Crack! That was a pure completion-level thunder technique. However, the white light exploded in the middle of the black snakes, causing the shadows to scatter as if they were about to disappear. However, it only lasted for 3 breaths. That was because the black snake actually gathered again in an instant. Undying and indestructible. Sumo was shocked. To be honest, the soul didn't give Sumo a strong feeling. But Sumo's attack had no effect on it. That was the scariest part. Restrain. At this moment, the other wing of the black shadow soul suddenly spread out. The void was filled with black snake-like lights, and there were more and more of them. Sumo's heart sank. Chi. With a thought, the furious Slayer sword flew into the void. Light radiated in all directions. However, the black snakes were not afraid at all. Sumo took out another 2 fire revolution pills. Bang! It suddenly exploded. However, after a few breaths, everything returned to normal. Moreover, the black light grew denser and denser. In the end, it was like dark clouds covering the sky. This was the terrifying power. It wasn't about how powerful he was, but the fact that he possessed indestructible power that was accumulating more and more. I'm the soul of Chunluo. I've experienced 9 deaths and 9 births before falling to this place. Creature of the Pure Land, your technique is useless. Just bury your soul here. The black shadow said in a hoarse voice. Countless black ropes descended from the sky. Chunluo's soul? Sumo's heart skipped a beat. Chunluo. This was a term that Sumo often heard. In a storage bag, there was an empty Chunluo Sutra. Soul? Undying and indestructible. Sumo had just formed his gold core, and the techniques he knew were quite limited. Now, he really couldn't deal with this Chan Luo soul that didn't seem to be of a high level, but he just couldn't win. Sumo was retreating step by step. Did he have to return to Silent Death Valley? That would be too embarrassing. Sumo's skills were all bestowed upon him by Silent Death Valley. Silent Death Valley was like his master. He had just left the sect, and he was beaten back. It was really a bit shameful. Of course, if he really couldn't do it in the end, Sumo didn't care about losing face. At the moment, he wouldn't have to take that step. Quick wit in an emergency. Sumo suddenly thought of the red dust ancient fan. In the ancient fan, there were immortal bones and skeletons. Skeletons and souls should belong to the same world, right? Maybe it could restrain Chun Luo's soul. Sumo thought blindly, but he really couldn't do anything at the moment. Whoosh! Sumo's mind moved, and the red dust ancient fan appeared in his hand. To be honest, that ancient fan was really not ordinary. A red light flashed in the pendant. Swish! Sumo shook the fan. The fan opened, and light filled the sky. He gently fanned. In the void, endless black wind appeared. Woo! Hoo! Roar! The black wind whistled like a tornado, bringing with it a shocking wind sound. At that moment, Sumo was a bit stunned, because he really didn't expect the red dust ancient fan to be so powerful. It should be known that he only fanned it once. Looking again, the black snakes released by the Chan Luo soul were directly blown away by the black wind, and there was no chance for them to reassemble. In an instant, the world became clear. Black divine wind. That Chan Luo soul seemed to know the technique of the red dust ancient fan. His voice was full of fear. You came from Izong world? That Chan Luo soul was shocked. However, Sumo didn't understand what he was saying. What Izong world? He had never heard of that world. This Chan Luo soul had been blocking Sumo for too long, and just now he almost caught Sumo. At this moment, Sumo, relying on the red dust ancient fan, only wanted to get rid of this obstacle so that he could hurry on his journey. Out! Sumo lightly shouted. Whoosh! The white skeleton directly flew out, with a trace of golden light on its body. At the same time, Sumo fanned the red dust ancient fan again. Sumo just wanted to finish the battle quickly. Whoosh! Whoosh! However, this time, the red dust ancient fan fanned out not the black wind, but thousands of red lights. The red lights covered the sky, like thousands of feet of red sand rising. Solitary death, ancestral bone. Red sand. At the last moment, that Chun Luo soul almost shouted himself hoarse. That Chun Luo soul still had his consciousness. No matter what, he didn't think. The creature that disturbed him actually had such a powerful existence. Whether it was the white skeleton or the red dust ancient fan, both were not existences that a Chun Luo soul like him could touch. In an instant, endless wails echoed endlessly. That Chun Luo soul in the red sand gradually lost its human form and directly turned into a black light. At this moment, the immortal skeleton unexpectedly jumped up and stretched out its skeletal hand. Chi! Chi! That Chun Luo soul in the immortal skeleton's hand unexpectedly turned into a long black whip. Pow! Boom! The immortal skeleton slightly shook the black whip in the void. That black whip directly emitted a black lightning. Not far away, a small hill collapsed in response. The huge boulder directly melted into the red sand, and the red sand swirled, unexpectedly turning everything within a radius of several dozen miles into nothingness. In an instant, the red sand filled the sky, invisible gods and ghosts. Sumo looked at the red sand in the sky. An indescribable emotion spread in her heart, but she couldn't explain it clearly. Whoosh! After a while, the wind swept away the clouds, and everything disappeared. Sumo wore a green robe, holding an ancient fan in her hand. Her eyes were full of shock. The appearance of this Chan Luo soul made him once again recognize the power he possessed. That black shadow that called itself Chan Luo soul was actually the transformation of a black whip. All of this was really unimaginable. Withdraw! Sumo lightly shouted, withdrew the white skeleton, and then gently stroked the red dust ancient fan. Chapter 161. Sumo tamed the souls that blocked the way. The Holy Will ancient site was truly a mysterious place. This time, after taming Chun Luo's soul, Sumo was more careful. He no longer used a flying treasure and instead rode on the wind. Though he was riding on the wind, Sumo's increase in realm made his speed not slow. It only took him half an hour to travel 700 to 800 miles. At the same time, he was paying attention to his surroundings. But this time, nothing happened. Inside the Holy Wheel ancient site, silence and peace returned. Sumo didn't understand why flying treasures would disturb the souls here, but cultivators' battles were fine. It was hard to explain. However, Sumo didn't have the heart to think too much about it. After a smooth journey, Sumo finally exited the Holy Wheel ancient site. Sadly, when he arrived at the valley outside the Holy Wheel ancient site, the array that Mu Jinghong used before was still there. However, Sumo couldn't activate it. It seemed like it really was Mu Jinghong's secret technique. Without any other choice, Sumo once again summoned the Sky Wheel ferry boat and headed north in the direction of the 5 wheels. It was 70,000 miles away, and Sumo had to fly the entire way. The White Bone Ridge was known as a scar on the White Bone continent. About this, Sumo had the most direct observation. Overlooking everything from the void, the White Bone Ridge really was like a protruding scar. The grayish-white mountain was in the middle of the White Bone continent. The reality was if Sumo could fly higher, he would realize that the entire White Bone continent looked more like a human lying on its side. As for the White Bone Ridge, it was like a hole had been torn in the upper part of its ribs. This wound was caused by either the Holy Wheel ancient site or the Silent Death Valley. Sadly, Sumo didn't fly that high. There was no transportation array for 70,000 miles. Even if he rode the Skywheel ferry boat, it would take him 3 days to arrive. Sumo decided to sit in a lotus position on the Skywheel ferry boat. After all, Sumo had just entered the completion level. He wasn't familiar with the spiritual energy of the completion level. Moreover, Sumo didn't have any other suitable cultivation technique besides the unwithering technique. Thus, on the first day, Sumo had been practicing how to control the breath of the core formation. Now, Sumo's inexhaustible chi had reached the advanced stage. The chi in his Dan Si was truly endless. There was almost no sign of exhaustion. He could definitely enter the second level, the cultivation of the undying bones. However, Sumo did not rush for success. He still felt that he should control the power of his core formation well. However, Sumo really didn't know much apart from some simple spells that she could form after forming her gold core. Thinking it over, Sumo suddenly remembered that she had a Dao technique that she had been unable to fully execute. Now that he was a completion-leveled cultivator, he could give it a try. That was his spirit summoning spell, Pure Land Galaxy. He recalled the time when he had cultivated the Pure Land Galaxy art. Sumo was very cautious. He hoped that this time, he would not summon a drop of water. After all, he was no longer the same as before. Sumo had already memorized the Pure Land Galaxy art's incantation. Seal. Technique completed. Sumo mobilized the undying chi of the core formation realm. This time, compared to the last time, could not be mentioned in the same breath. Last time, Sumo was only at the 7th level of the chi refinement realm. Now, he was at the peak of the middle stage of the core formation realm. The difference was like heaven and earth. Actually, the Pure Land Galaxy art had a high requirement for the cultivator. The summoned item was closely related to the cultivator's realm. The higher the cultivator's realm, the more powerful the summoned item would be. Sumo was hopeful as he recited the introduction of the Pure Land Galaxy art. In the vast universe, there are thousands of worlds. Above the bones, there are holy lotuses. How much dust is there in one place? Outside the Pure Land, there is the reincarnation of the Milky Way. After thousands of years of tribulations, it is far away. However, this divine power can achieve it. The item connected to life borrows the light of eternal life. There must be a secret in the introduction that Sumo couldn't understand. Back then, Sumo didn't succeed when he used this technique. That was because his cultivation level back then couldn't provide the spirit chi needed for the Pure Land Galaxy art. Sumo's technique was different from others. His Milky Way seemed too far away. But today, Sumo was much stronger. It was better to guard one's spirit and chi, focus and calm the mind, meditating on the boundless universe and the thousands of worlds. It was a boundless fantasy. It depended on where one's heart stopped. Gradually, Sumo entered a meditative state. In the beginning, he felt like he was in a boundless void and everything was empty. He couldn't see the past and the future. Sumo once again felt as if he was a speck of dust in a vast universe, incomparably small. A tinge of sorrow arose spontaneously. The worlds were endless, and the universe was boundless. Where can a duckweed return ashore? Where's my route? Sumo looked around blankly. Thousands of nebulas and clusters of stars were around him. However, everything was changing. This time, Sumo felt his divine will penetrate thousands of space-time. He saw many worlds and many lives. It was a similar feeling to the dream he had in front of the ancient temple. He walked on a lotus and saw thousands of worlds. However, those worlds were just passers-by. Sumo's Pure Land Galaxy was extremely far away. It seemed to be at the end of the universe. That was not to cross mountains and rivers, but to experience thousands of worlds. This time, Sumo didn't feel dizzy. That was because his cultivation level was different, and so was his state of mind. Sumo believed that there was a world beyond this world. In a vast void, Sumo's divine will flew quickly. Its speed was fast enough to catch up with the stars. Countless light spots flew past Sumo. Each light spot was a world. Sumo was dazzled, but he was determined. He had to see his own galaxy. In the distance, he finally saw a brilliant star domain. Countless stars shone brightly. Countless meteors were beautiful. It was peaceful, and even the depths of the galaxy were filled with singing. It seemed to be a true pure land in the universe, a pure land of eternal life. That galaxy was endless. Ask not this life, ask not the next, ask not the cause and effect, ask not the fate. When everything begins, where will it end? If you don't know the beginning, why ask the end? The voice that had appeared before echoed again. However, this time, Sumo didn't vomit blood. Instead, his mind was extremely determined, because he knew that was the world that he should reach and communicate with in his life. That galaxy was so beautiful. When his divine telekinesis saw that star domain, he felt a chill down his spine. Sumo's heart suddenly trembled. It was a trembling of the soul, as if he saw everything that had been sealed for years. That was the place that his soul longed for. His love was there. However, Sumo's current technique could only see this galaxy clearly. If he went further into the galaxy, he wouldn't be able to do so. All he could see was peace and harmony. Sumo shouted. Whoosh! A purple pool of water appeared on the heavenly wheel ferry boat. A black light circled around inside like a black dragon. Sumo opened his eyes and saw the pool of water and the black light. Go! Sumo shouted again. The black light suddenly flew out of the purple pool, carrying an aura that Sumo had never experienced before. It was the aura of destruction. The black light shot into the sky. Sumo didn't know what it meant. However, it only rushed out for 1,000 feet before disappearing without a trace. Then, the purple pool also disappeared. Chapter 162. As he flew, he also cultivated. In less than 3 days, Sumo had already walked 70,000 miles and could see the 5 paths immortal domain in the distance. To be honest, Sumo was looking forward to returning to 5 wheels. This was the first time Sumo saw the 5 paths immortal domain from the south. From afar, it looked like layers of clouds and fog. Sumo felt a little strange. Why was the southern 5 paths immortal protectorate different from a northern 5 paths immortal protectorate? This was because when Sumo returned from the Punishing Heart Cliff, she didn't see any clouds in the northern 5 paths immortal domain. Sumo remembered that there were no clouds when he and Mu Jinghong left the 5 paths immortal domain. They were getting closer and closer. They were only a few dozen miles away. On the heavenly wheel ferry boat, Sumo suddenly felt an ominous aura. That ominous aura actually came from the clouds outside the immortal realm of five wheels. Huh? Sumo was slightly stunned. What's going on? Sumo arrived a dozen miles away in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the aura in the clouds became denser. Sumo suddenly had a bad premonition. On the heavenly wheel ferry boat, Sumo opened one hand. The broken bamboo pole was already in his hand. The aura of the five wheels was not right. However, Sumo still entered the five paths immortal domain. The mist outside was only a layer. The five paths immortal domain was empty, and it was 3,000 miles away from the five paths south profound gate. This was supposed to be a wilderness. However, Sumo felt that something was wrong with the atmosphere here. Did something happen to five wheels? Thinking of this, Sumo quickly took out the wind wheel jade slip. Since he had entered the five wheels, he could use the wind wheel's jade slip to contact his senior brothers and sisters. However, Sumo used the jade slip to transmit her voice. There was no response from the jade slip. Sumo's expression changed. What was going on? Did something happen to Windmill? Or did something happen to the five-wheeled motorcycle? Otherwise, it would be impossible for this to happen. Thinking of this, Sumo's heart tightened. He activated the heavenly wheel ferry boat and headed straight for the southern five paths mystic gate at the fastest speed. The distance of 3,000 li could be said to be as fast as lightning. Along the way, Sumo used the windmill jade slip to contact the people of Windmill. However, there was no response. Sumo became even more anxious. However, the Skywheel ferry boat was already his fastest Dharma treasure. After 2 hours, Sumo finally saw the southern five paths profound gate. Sumo could use the five-wheel mysterious gate, because when he left the five-wheel profound gate, he should have left a mark. However, just as Sumo put away the heavenly wheel ferry boat and was about to activate the five-wheel mysterious gate, swish, swish, suddenly 3 beams of light flew over from 3 different directions. They were 3 flying swords. Sumo's figure moved, and the 3 flying swords missed and flew back. At the same time, Sumo looked around. In an instant, 3 cultivators in white robes went straight for him. The 3 cultivators were all in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, and they went straight for Sumo. 3 late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivators? In the Five-Wheel sect, he was definitely a first-class disciple. However, these 3 cultivators in white robes were very unfamiliar, and Sumo should have never seen them before. Earthwheel cultivators? This was Sumo's instinctive reaction. They actually dared to be so brazen in the Five Wheels immortal domain. Which sect are you from? Sumo asked. However, the 3 cultivators didn't answer at all. The 3 flying swords and 3 sword lights went straight for Sumo. Sumo raised his eyebrows, and a murderous look appeared on his face. In the past, Sumo couldn't even beat one of them, but now, these 3 late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivators were not worth mentioning in the eyes of Sumo. Whoosh! The pressure from Sumo's body dissipated. The 3 late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivators didn't expect that the young man in green before them was actually a core formation realm cultivator. However, they had already made their move, and there was no turning back. If the opponent wasn't a particularly powerful core formation realm cultivator, the 3 of them had the confidence to fight. Therefore, Sumo's core formation aura dissipated slightly. The 3 late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivators could actually still rush forward. Unfortunately, they made the wrong calculation. Sumo was a cultivator at the peak of the intermediate core formation realm. By the time the 3 late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivators saw through Sumo's realm, it was already too late. The pressure from the core formation realm suddenly dissipated, as if it was tangible. This kind of suppression was absolute, unless one had some kind of treasure to protect their body or cultivated a special technique. However, the 3 Foundation Establishment realm cultivators didn't have these conditions. The 3 late-stage Foundation Establishment realm cultivators seemed to have encountered a wall when they were 3 meters away from Sumo, and they couldn't rush forward at all. Moreover, they were instantly frozen by the power of the core formation realm, and their bodies became sluggish. In a battle of this level, life and death could be decided in an instant, and Sumo didn't give them any chance. Puff! Puff! The bamboo pole was like a spear, aimed straight at the center of her brows. In an instant, Sumo pierced through the skulls of two of the cultivators in white. Clean, efficient, and merciless. Because Sumo already understood. Don't show mercy to those who want to kill you. As for the third cultivator, Sumo hesitated for a moment, because he wanted to know what happened to Five Wheels. However, the third cultivator didn't escape while Sumo was killing his companions. Instead, he suddenly summoned a sky-soaring fireworks. Boom! Bang! The fireworks abruptly exploded in the air. A skull pattern appeared in the air. The Slekton sect. Sumo was startled. He heard from his second senior brother that the skull pattern was the symbol of the Slekton sect. These three cultivators were from the Slekton sect. This was something Sumo didn't expect. In the Five Wheels immortal realm, and in the Nanshin Gate at that, cultivators with white bones appeared. They lost contact with the Wind Wheel sect. Outside the Five Wheels, there was a huge fog. Three cultivators with white bones in the late stage of Foundation establishment were trying to kill him. Did something really happen to the Five Wheels? Sumo was shocked. Regardless of the internal strife within the Five Wheels was the Five Wheels, and the Slekton sect was the Slekton sect. The internal strife of the Five Wheels and the attack of the Slekton sect were two completely different concepts. Therefore, the moment Sumo saw the white skulls, he didn't want to ask the cultivator in white anything. Regarding the disciples of the Slekton sect, Sumo only had one word in his mind: kill. First, the Five Wheels and the White Bones had been enemies for tens of thousands of years. The two sects were like fire and water, irreconcilable. As a disciple of the Five Wheels, Sumo naturally had his own principles and standpoint. After entering the Five Wheels, he was a person with five wheels. Second, Sumo hadn't forgotten the time when he was chased by the cultivators of the Slekton sect. If it wasn't for senior brother Shinlang secretly protecting him, he would have been killed that time. Sumo was a vengeful person. Poof! The bamboo pole in Sumo's hand shook, and this time, it directly pierced through the heart of the last white-clothed Foundation establishment cultivator. His white robe was stained with blood. The white-clothed Foundation establishment cultivator's expression was ferocious, as if he was unwilling to die. He looked at Sumo and actually said, "Five Wheels actually has core formation?" His words caused Sumo's heart to sink. What did he mean? Five Wheels has core formation. Sumo flicked his hand and directly sent the white-clothed Foundation establishment cultivator flying. Then he was about to open the Five Wheels mystic gate. However, right at this moment, not far away, a shout was heard. "Surviving members of the Five Wheels, you still dare to behave atrociously?" She looked again and saw a middle-aged cultivator rapidly flying over from the west. It seemed like he saw the signal from his fellow sect members. He was also wearing a white robe, but the sleeve of the middle-aged cultivator's robe was embroidered with a black skull. Middle stage core formation. Sumo frowned. Chapter 163. The cultivator in white, the black skeleton. Currently, Sumo squinted his eyes. Because the cultivator in white should be an elder of the Slekton sect. An elder of the Slekton sect is also in the southern territory of the Five Wheels. At that moment, Sumo even suspected that he had accidentally entered the territory of the Slekton sect. Has the Five Wheels been overturned? Sumo was getting more and more anxious. What would happen to the Windwell sect by Lai, Shinlang, and the others? However, the elder of the Slekton sect didn't give Sumo much time to think. With a raise of his hand, a wind blade shot out. Blade of Wind was a technique of completion-leveled cultivators. However, the cultivator in white seemed to be very familiar with it. Whoosh! The Blade of Wind was like a giant knife. It swept across the sky like a crescent moon. When the Blade of Wind was about 10 feet away from Sumo, Sumo already felt a tearing sensation. intermediate stage of the completion level was definitely a Grandmaster cultivator. At the same level, Sumo's suppression was useless. Actually, Sumo could have retaliated with a blade of wind, but he didn't. When the blade of wind came down from the sky, Sumo could only react hurriedly. Though they were at the same level, Sumo's mastery of the completion level was definitely not as good as the skeletal cultivator. After all, Sumo had only been in the completion level for a short period of time, and the techniques he knew were limited. Almost all of his core formation level spells were learned on the spot and executed on the spot. However, this intermediate stage cultivator could be Sumo's whetstone, because real battle experience can only be gained in battle. Of course, Sumo had his own advantages. That was, he had an extraordinary treasure. Sumo first defended and then moved back. He retreated in order to avoid the wind blade, and then waved the broken bamboo pole in his hand. As for this bamboo stick, Sumo still didn't know its level. However, every time he held the bamboo pole in his hand, Sumo felt safe and at ease. However, the white-robed cultivator probably didn't think much of the bamboo pole. Although the bamboo pole was emitting a faint green glow, it was quite ordinary in the eyes of the skeletal cultivator. Moreover, at this time, he also felt a bit strange. Why would a cultivator of the mid-core formation stage appear in the southern domain of the five wheels? How many core formation cultivators did the five wheels have, and how many core formation cultivators were hiding? The Selectan sect basically knew everything. The Selectan sect had been planning for this battle for many years. They had planted quite a number of spies in five wheels. However, in the records of the Selectan sect, five wheels never had a core formation cultivator in black robes. Looking at his age, the green-clothed youth was only about 20 years old. Could it be that another sect had entered by mistake? However, that was almost impossible. The white-robed cultivator pondered. However, no matter who it was, they had entered the Five Paths immortal domain and killed the skeletal cultivator. Naturally, they would be killed without mercy. Thus, the white-robed cultivator's attack missed. Seeing the bamboo pole coming at him, he directly shook his hand. Chi! A ray of sword light was heading straight for the bamboo pole. The white-robed cultivator's thinking was very simple. The immortal sword in his hand was a nascent soul-level magic treasure. That immortal sword was also a famous item in the Selectan sect. Relying on this cold spring sword, he had traveled unhindered for hundreds of years and had rarely met an opponent. Thus, he was very confident. Today, killing a cultivator of the same level as him was no longer a problem. However, this time he was wrong. As the flying sword attacked, Sumo didn't even dodge. He had enough confidence in the bamboo pole, so he used even more strength. Clank! Boom! The immortal sword and the bamboo pole collided. The white-robed cultivator originally thought that he would cut the bamboo pole in half. However, at this moment, he only felt his hand go numb and the cold spring immortal sword almost fell out of his hand. The white-robed cultivator was shocked, because at the same time, he realized that a crack had appeared on the cold spring immortal sword. How is this possible? But how is this impossible? Sumo saw the white-robed cultivator's shock, so he directly pointed the bamboo pole at the white-robed cultivator's chest. Sumo didn't know many techniques, so he wanted to end this quickly. Chi! Chi! The bamboo pole broke through the air, carrying with it the sound of wind. The white-robed cultivator finally re-evaluated the bamboo pole's power. He definitely didn't dare to face it head-on. Defensive treasure. The white-robed cultivator slapped his storage pouch. In the air, a white bone shield suddenly appeared. The skull on it was extremely ferocious. The shield was at least a foot thick. However, the bamboo pole didn't care about that. Chi! Chi! The bamboo pole pierced through the white bone shield like it was tofu. However, this was all within the white-robed cultivator's expectations, because the white bone shield was only a core formation level treasure. Even a nascent soul flying sword was no match for the bamboo pole, let alone a core formation shield. The white-robed cultivator only hoped to stop Sumo for a bit. Sure enough, Sumo's attack slowed down a bit. At this moment, the white-robed cultivator once again formed a hand seal. Whoosh! In the air, a white flame suddenly appeared. It wasn't a normal flame technique, because it was a milky white flame, very strange. At first, it was only a trace on the white-robed cultivator's fingertip, but in the blink of an eye, it turned into a fire dragon. Whistling, it headed straight for Sumo. White flame, that was the secret art of the Selectan sect. Right now, Sumo was at a disadvantage. He had the power of a core formation level, but the number of techniques he could use was pitiful. Among the techniques of the 5 wheels, there was actually a technique that specialized in restraining this white flame. Unfortunately, Sumo didn't know it, but Sumo had a treasure. Earth Chakra Shield. Sumo slapped his storage pouch again. Whoosh! A small black shield flew out and grew to a height of 10 feet, blocking in front of Sumo. This Earth Chakra Shield was much more powerful than his opponent's White Bone Shield. Although the white flame was powerful, it couldn't melt a nascent soul-level treasure. The endless flame was blocked by the black shield. The white-robed cultivator's expression changed again. Who the hell is this young man in green? He actually used 2 nascent soul-level treasures. That broken bamboo pole might be even more powerful than nascent soul-level treasures. But it wasn't over yet. His surprise was still to come. Go, Sumo's mind moved. Furious Immortal Killer had already flown out. A 3rd nascent soul-level treasure. The white-robed cultivator was slightly stunned. The Furious Immortal Killer's sword aura seemed to be stronger than his Cold Spring. Chi. In a hurry, he could only summon the Cold Spring to block, because the frequency of Sumo's attacks was too fast. Clang, but the Cold Spring flying sword already had cracks. The 2 flying swords clashed. The Furious Immortal Killer actually cut the Cold Spring in half. The white-robed cultivator's face turned pale. That was his natal immortal sword. It actually broke? He hurriedly formed a hand seal, wanting to block the incoming sword aura from the Furious Immortal Killer. However, he didn't expect Sumo to have an immortal sword. At this moment, Sumo took advantage of the moment when the core formation cultivator was stunned. Another flying sword had already shot out from the side of the black shield. He wanted to catch the white-robed cultivator off guard. Back then, Sumo had obtained a total of 2 nascent soul-level flying swords. 1 long and 1 short. This time, it was a flying sword that was less than 7 inches long. Nascent soul-level flying sword. Essence of the Blue Moon. Poof! Chapter 164. The blue moonlight didn't look like a furious slash. The blue moonlight was like a blue flying fish in the sky. It was extremely fast and unavoidable. The skeletal cultivator didn't think that the young man in green could take out 4 nascent level treasures, and each one was more powerful than the last. Who was this young man in green and 5 wheels? However, he could only go to the underworld to find out the answer. All he saw was a flash of blue light, and then he felt a chill on his neck. Blood rushed 3 feet. The white-robed cultivator's throat was slit, and his body fell to the ground. Afraid that he didn't die, Sumo stuck out his broken bamboo pole. Puff! The broken bamboo pole pierced through his heart. Sadly, this elder of the Selectan sect died in Sumo's hands just like that. But he didn't even know Sumo's name. Sumo snorted and put away all the treasures. Then, he used the bamboo pole to pick up the core formation cultivator's storage pouch and put it away. As for the 3 foundation-level storage pouches, Sumo was too lazy to take them. This time, no more cultivators came. Actually, the entire southern region of 5 wheels was only guarded by these 4 cultivators. In theory, 1 middle-stage core formation cultivator and 3 foundation-level cultivators in the late stage was already a very strong arrangement. However, the Selectan sect didn't expect that there would be another core formation cultivator outside of 5 wheels. Plus, it was Sumo who returned in a strong manner. After killing a middle-stage core formation cultivator, Sumo's confidence soared. After this battle, he wouldn't be too nervous facing a core formation cultivator. Thus, Sumo directly jumped into the 5-wheel profound gate and activated the teleportation array. He had to return to the inner mountain of 5 wheels immediately. Inside the gate, everything was normal. However, Sumo still couldn't communicate with the senior brothers and sisters of the Windwell sect. Inside the gate, Sumo could only wait. Actually, it was only a quarter of an hour, but Sumo felt like it was an eternity. Whoosh! Finally, there was a flash of light. Sumo finally arrived at the other end of the array, the back mountain of Yongjin Peak. However, as soon as he stepped out of the teleportation array, Sumo's face instantly turned pale. This was because the entire back mountain of Yongjin Peak was filled with the strong smell of blood, and there were at least hundreds of corpses. They were all over the place, and it was a horrible sight to behold. The white-robed man, the gray-robed man, and even the green-robed man. Some of their bodies were incomplete. Most of them were disciples of the 5 wheels of Yongjin Peak. Sumo guessed that the rest were from the Selectan sect. Among them, Sumo saw Li Deidi and Lu Yicheng. The two of them were back-to-back and were pierced by the spear at the same time. However, the spear-wielding cultivator of the Selectan sect was also killed by a sword. Li Deidi and Lu Yicheng actually died with grievances. They were still holding weapons in their hands. Sumo raised an eyebrow. Although the two of them had a grudge against him, when it came to the Selectan sect, there was no doubt that they were from the same sect. With a wave of his hand, Sumo closed the two men's eyes. Sumo's mood became even heavier. It seemed that they had been dead for 4 to 5 days. However, the bodies of the 5 wheels did not rot, because it was an immortal mountain. There should have been a large-scale battle here, but the level of the battle should not be high. Could it be that the Selectan sect invaded the 5 wheels? Because many Chi refinement disciples had actually killed their way to the Yongjin Peak. Sumo almost did not dare to believe it. It should be known that the 5 wheels had a radius of 100,000 miles. Every blade of grass and tree was under their jurisdiction. The northern region of the 5 wheels was even guarded by the elders of the Firewheel lineage. How could the Selectan sect enter the hinterland? Unless Sumo was shocked. He thought of a possibility, but he was not willing to believe it. At the moment, he did not care about this. There was no longer anyone alive in the back mountain of the Yongjin Peak. Sumo did not see anyone he was particularly familiar with. Those people might still have a chance to live. There was no one in the front mountain of the Yongjin Peak, but there were also many corpses. The entire Yongjin Peak seemed to be empty. However, it seemed that most of the disciples of the Yongjin Peak should still be there. There were less than 1,000 corpses. Moreover, the elders of the Yongjin Peak did not die in battle. This was a good situation. After searching for a while, he did not find anything. Sumo turned around and headed straight for the cave abode of the mountain gate. Because Bai Lai was there. Although Sumo had some doubts about Bai Lai's identity, at this moment, Sumo could only treat Bai Lai as a mortal. Could Bai Lai be dead? When Sumo thought of this, he rushed to the cave of the Selectan sect as fast as he could. Along the way, he did not see any corpses. Perhaps the mountain gate was no longer an important place for the 5 wheels. Sumo's immortal's cave-dwelling jade slip was still there. Bai Lai, Sumo shouted, and at the same time, he directly opened the cave and rushed inside. However, when he entered the cave, it was empty. The stone table, the stone bench, and so on, everything was there. However, where was the shadow of Bai Lai? Bai Lai, Sumo rushed out of the cave again and shouted. However, there was still no answer. This result was acceptable to Sumo. As long as he did not see Bai Lai's corpse, it was a good thing. At this moment, Sumo looked at the main peaks of the other branches of the 5 wheels. The 5 wheels actually encountered such a disaster? Hundreds of miles away, there was only a murderous aura and bloody light. Especially in the direction of the Sky Wheel Mountain, it was as if it was dyed with blood. There was a battle in the Sky Wheel Mountain. However, after thinking about it, Sumo decided to directly rush to the Windwheel Mountain. Sumo soared into the sky, almost turning into a ray of light. However, as soon as he flew up, he heard someone calling for help in the void. Sumo followed the voice and saw a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator of the 5 wheels carrying a level 7 Chi refinement cultivator covered in blood, fleeing. Behind them, There were two late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators in white chasing after them. Brother Zhao. Sumo was shocked. The level 7 Qi refinement cultivator was Zhao Yunxing of the Sky Wheel branch. Brother Su. At this moment, Zhao Yunxing also saw Sumo and hurriedly shouted, "Brother Su, run! Don't worry about me." Zhao Yunxing was confused. If it weren't for his uncle Zhao Can, he would have already died. However, at this time, he still told Sumo to run, which could be considered as a form of friendship. Of course, Sumo couldn't just watch them being chased. However, Sumo was still a bit too slow. When Zhao Yunxing shouted for Sumo, a select insect cultivator's sword went straight to Zhao Yunxing. But how could Zhao Yunxing have the strength to resist? The late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, Zhao Can, was already an arrow at the end of its flight. At this critical moment, in order to protect Zhao Yunxing, he actually stood up. Puff! The select insect cultivator's sword directly pierced Zhao Kansas. However, that Zhao Jian could be considered to be quite valiant. He actually risked his life and stabbed his opponent's left rib. Both of them were stabbed at almost the same time. Third uncle. Zhao Yunxing didn't care about his life and hugged his uncle Zhao Kansas. At this time, the other late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator made his move. However, this time, his sword wasn't as fast as Sumo's. Swish! The Immortal Slayer's sword directly flew over. Sumo attacked with hatred. How could she show mercy? The Whitebone Foundation establishment cultivator's head was directly cut off by Sumo. The other cultivator was also struck by Sumo's sword. Both were killed. Third uncle. Zhao Yunxing hugged Zhao Can's corpse and burst into tears. However, now that he was dead, he couldn't be called back. Chapter 165. Zhao Can was killed, and Zhao Yunxing wailed in grief. All of this was actually a microcosm of the battle between the cultivators, the Whitebone sect and the Five Wheels sect. Countless cultivators died in the battle between the two first-class sects in the northern region of the Whitebone continent. This was the Five Wheels calamity. At the same time, this battle would change the situation of the cultivators in the Whitebone continent. Senior Brother Zhao, I'm sorry for your loss. Sumo could only pat Zhao Yunxing's shoulder. Zhao Yunxing tried his best to control his emotions. This was because he also understood that this was not the time to be sad. Senior Brother Zhao, what exactly happened? Sumo asked. Junior Brother Su, 7 days ago, the Select sect suddenly launched a large-scale attack on the Five Wheels sect. The Whitebone cultivators descended from the sky and caught us off guard. The Five Wheels sect suffered heavy casualties. 3 days ago, most of the sect members were still trapped in the main peaks of the various lineages, struggling to hold on. Now, the main peaks of the Earth Wheel and Fire Wheel lineages have fallen. Among the Heaven Wheel, Water Wheel, and Wind Wheel lineages, other than the Wind Wheel lineage, I'm afraid the other two lineages won't be able to hold on for much longer. I escaped from a small peak of the Heaven Wheel lineage. This is because I didn't have the chance to go to the main peak. Why is the Wind Wheel mountain fine? Sumo said. The Wind Wheel lineage is impregnable. Zhao Yunxing sighed and said, It said that before the Select sect attacked, the entire Wind Wheel 9 peaks had been completely sealed. The Wind Wheel lineage cut off contact with the outside world and set up a shocking array. I'm not sure about the exact details. I only heard that the Select sect surrounded the Wind Wheel mountain but didn't dare to attack. What about the people on the Yongjin Peak? Sumo calmed down after hearing Zhao Yunxing's words. No wonder he couldn't contact the people on the Wind Wheel sect. All the lineages have been relocated. Those who could be relocated left on the same day, Zhao Yunxing said. However, I'm afraid more than half of them have died. What about Bai Lai? Sumo asked again. Bai Lai? Zhao Yunxing shook his head with a bitter smile. Junior Brother Su, who would care about that old beggar at this time? They either died in the battle or ran away. Su Mo furrowed his brows. Zhao Yunxing's words were actually very true. 5 wheels had been attacked. Unless it was him, who else would care about the useless Bai Lai? It was unknown how many aura refining and foundation building cultivators died. An old cultivator boy was truly insignificant. Senior brother Zhao, how did the Selectin sect break into the five-wheel sect so easily? Sumo said with a frown. Are the five-wheel great mountain guarding array and the defense of the north useless? Because there are too many spies in the five wheels. Zhao Yunxing's expression was a bit stupefied. He still didn't want to believe a lot of things. There were many spies from the Selectin sect in the five wheels sect. Except for the wind wheel sect, there seemed to be spies from every lineage. The elders of the fire wheel sect had long since defected to the Selectin sect. The northern defense of the five wheels immortal domain was basically useless. Elder Hong of the fire wheel sect even acted as the vanguard of White Bones. He led the core formation cultivators of the Selectin sect and was the first to break through the fire wheel mountain. The fire wheel first seat, Ruan Yulin, became the first to fall among the five wheels' first seats. What Zhao Yunxing couldn't believe the most was that Mu Jinghong was actually a direct disciple of the Selectin sect, stunning White Bones for 3,000 years. Mu Jinghong had always been the pride and even the flag of the five wheels. On normal days, Mu Jinghong was indeed somewhat domineering, but the five wheels cultivators were all in awe of Mu Jinghong. Other than the individual five wheels cultivators, probably no one would have thought that she was actually the biggest spy of the Selectin sect. Mu Jinghong was a member of the Selectin sect. This kind of psychological impact was very fatal to the five wheels, and it even made many of the disciples lose their fighting spirit. This was because Mu Jinghong's influence was too great. Master Mu Jinghong is the biggest spy of the Selectin sect, Zhao Yunxing said in a deep voice. What? Sumo simply couldn't believe it. Hee. Zhao Yunxing sneered sadly. Junior brother Su, you didn't hear it wrong, and I didn't say anything wrong. Mu Jinghong is the direct disciple of the Selectin sect's founder. It is said that the two late-stage core formation cultivators of the Skywheel First Seat were all killed by her. Mu Jinghong didn't die? Sumo asked. At this moment, Sumo didn't know whether she was happy or sad. Sumo definitely hoped that Mu Jinghong didn't die. However, Mu Jinghong was actually a spy of the Selectin sect. This kind of situation even made Sumo feel that Mu Jinghong was better off dead. How could Mu Jinghong be a spy of the five wheels? How could Mu Jinghong be a spy of the five wheels? Then what was the point of everything he did for her? Sumo saw with her own eyes how Mu Jinghong risked his life to save her. Die. Hee. She is currently fighting at the Skywheel Mountain. I hope she dies immediately. Zhao Yunxing clenched his teeth. However, he suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but turn to look at Sumo. Junior brother Su. Sumo was stunned. This was because he felt that Zhao Yunxing's tone was a little strange. Junior brother Su, if you're also a member of the Selectin sect, then just kill me. Zhao Yunxing looked at Sumo with coldness and despair in his eyes. Who didn't know about the relationship between Mu Jinghong and Sumo? Since Mu Jinghong was a member of the Selectin sect, then it was very likely that Sumo was also a member of the Selectin sect. This could explain why Mu Jinghong always protected Sumo and even went against the Sky Wheel Mountain sect. Moreover, Sumo suddenly disappeared a few days ago. Although Sumo saved him just now, Zhao Yunxing didn't believe in many things at this moment. The Selectin sect said that those who surrender will not be killed. However, I, Zhao Yunxing, would rather die than surrender. Zhao Yunxing waved his hand and summoned a ball of fire. Whoosh! That ball of fire instantly enveloped Zhao Can's corpse and burned fiercely. Third uncle, I'm useless. Perhaps I can't avenge you anymore. However, I was born a five-wheel realm person, and I will die a five-wheel realm ghost. As he spoke, Zhao Yunxing knelt in the air and kowtowed 3 times to Zhao Can's burning corpse. There were tears in his eyes, and his expression was resolute. Zhao Can's corpse was covered in blue flames and burned out very quickly. Junior brother Su, do it. Zhao Yunxing seemed to be convinced that Sumo was a member of the Selectin sect. At this moment, he had already disregarded life and death, and only wanted to die for the five-wheel realm. Senior brother Zhao. Sumo's heart was filled with warmth. That was because Zhao Yunxing had displayed another side of being an immortal's playboy. He would rather die than surrender. That was absolute backbone. At the same time, a deep sense of sorrow flashed across Sumo's heart. Mu Jinghong was actually a direct disciple of the Selectan sect. This was something that Sumo absolutely could not accept. Why was it like this? Why? Mu Jinghong's image in Sumo's heart began to waver. At this moment, Sumo did not need to say anything more. He needed to prove himself that he was not a traitor of the Five Wheels. He also needed to fulfill his responsibility as a disciple of the Five Wheels. Sumo looked at Zhao Yunxing and then said in a low voice, "Senior brother Zhao, I, Sumo, am not talented. I was born a little beggar, but I still know that honor is the foundation of loyalty. As long as I, Sumo, am a disciple of the Five Wheels for a day, I will forever be one. I am the same as you, born a five-wheel realm person, and died a five-wheel realm ghost. Born a five-wheel realm person, and died a five-wheel realm ghost." This was not only the voice of Sumo and Zhao Yunxing, but also the voice of many five-wheel realm cultivators. With that, Sumo no longer cared about Zhao Yunxing and went straight in the direction of Skywheel Mountain. Chapter 166. A green shadow flashed, and Sumo disappeared. Zhao Yunxing was stunned in the air and gritted his teeth. He also headed straight for Mount Tianluan. Since they were both five-wheel cultivators, they would die together. Since things had come to this point, why should he cherish his life? Zhao Yunxing chased after Sumo, but his speed was too slow. At this time, Zhao Yunxing finally reacted. How did Sumo suddenly become so powerful? Just now, Sumo killed a skeletal late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator with a sword. After thinking about it carefully, Zhao Yunxing couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The gap in their realms made Zhao Yunxing unable to see Sumo's realm. However, he would never have thought that after not hearing any news from Sumo for half a month, Sumo had already reached the peak of the middle stage core formation realm. Because that was a miracle. Besides, Sumo was in a hurry all the way. Looking from afar, the main peak of Mount Tianluan was filled with bloody light. It seemed that the area within a radius of a few hundred miles was filled with fog and murderous intent. Along the way, Sumo smelled the smell of blood. Countless cultivators from the two sects died, and the battle situation was extremely tragic. From the direction of Yangjian Peak to Mount Tianluan, one had to pass through Mount Earthluan. In fact, when Zhao Yunxing said that the main peak of Earthluan and Fireluan had fallen one after another, Sumo had some doubts. Earthluan was known as the strongest among the five-wheel sects besides the Heavenlin lineage. However, why was it captured so quickly? On the contrary, why was the Waterluan lineage, which was previously the weakest, able to hold on? Could it be that none of the 7 core formation realm cultivators were at the Earth-Luan level? Sumo's conjecture was actually very close to the truth, but he wasn't sure. Just as Sumo passed by the main peak of Mount Earthluan, a cultivator in black suddenly appeared in the air and blocked Sumo's way. The cultivator's hair was disheveled, his eyes were thin, his face was pale, and his body was covered in blood. However, it was unknown if he was injured or if he had killed too many people. "Sumo!" The black-clothed cultivator called out to Sumo. Sumo was stunned because he had never seen that black-robed cultivator before. However, he didn't look like a white-bone cultivator. "Who are you?" Sumo raised the bamboo pole in her hand. He was ready to strike at any time. "Hee. Sumo, you actually don't even know me?" The black-clothed cultivator smiled sinisterly. "I'm ahead of the Earth Wheel level, Injonmo." Chiefin. Sumo was shocked. He really hadn't seen Injonmo before. However, when he took a closer look at the black-robed cultivator, he was indeed the same as what the senior brothers of Windwheel had mentioned. Therefore, Sumo said, "Chiefin, I heard that the Earthwheel Mountain has fallen. Why are you here?" So what if the Earthwheel Mountain has fallen? Injonmo's face was extremely pale, but he still had a strange smile on his face. "Sumo, give me the soul-gathering pearl that you obtained from the Punishing Heart Cliff." "Soul-gathering pearl? The soul-gathering pearl again?" Sumo frowned. He didn't have the time to argue with Enchantment about the 7 core formation stage experts chasing after him. However, the soul gathering pearl really wasn't on Sumo. Chiefine, I have already given the soul gathering pearl to my 7th senior sister. Sumo said, now the Selectin sect is attacking, and the 5 wheels is in danger. I hope that we can put aside our past enmity and be part of the 5 wheels. If the 5 wheels are safe this time, I am willing to offer the soul gathering pearl. Sumo's words were sincere. This was because, in Sumo's opinion, there was nothing more important than the survival of the 5 wheels. Put aside our past enmity and be part of the 5 wheels? Enchantment suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. However, his laughter was somewhat terrifying. Sumo, you make it sound nice. Mu Jinghong is the White Bones trader, and you were brought to the 5 wheels by her, and you protected it everywhere. You still regard her as your master. One master and one servant have harmed the 5 wheels. If you say that the soul gathering pearl isn't on you, who would believe you? Sumo narrowed her eyes. Chiefine, Sumo is definitely not the White Bones trader. Everything I said is true and comes from the bottom of my heart. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. Now, I'm going to the Sky Wheel Mountain to rescue them. If you still think that you are the chief of the 5 wheels, don't stop me. If you stop me, you will be a sinner of the 5 wheels. When Enchantment heard Sumo's words, his expression couldn't help but freeze. A sinner of the 5 wheels? Enchantment absolutely couldn't accept these words and would never accept them. Enchantment and Yang Tianxiao were the same kind of people. They only wanted to control the 5 wheels, but they didn't want to bury the 5 wheels. On the contrary, they all thought that they had contributed to the 5 wheels. They wouldn't accept a sinner of the 5 wheels, even if they died. Against the Selectin sect, they were still united against outsiders, because they all had the brand of the 5 wheels on their bodies. That was something that was engraved in their souls. Therefore, Sumo's words made Enchantment hesitate. However, Enchantment still had a trump card. That was under the Earthwheel Mountain's crypt. There was a person who was at the level of the founder of the 5 wheels. Don't look at the fact that the Earthwheel Mountain had fallen. The 5 wheels was defeated like a collapsing mountain and even became a stubborn resistance. However, as long as that founder made a move, he could turn the situation around with a raise of his hand. However, that founder needed the 5th soul gathering pearl. Moreover, there were only 7 days left. At this moment, Enchantment couldn't help but take a closer look at Sumo. His heart couldn't help but be shocked, and his eyes narrowed. Peak of the middle stage of the core formation realm. Sumo, how did you increase your realm? You just escaped from the 5 wheels, and it has only been half a month. How did you suddenly become a core formation cultivator when you couldn't build your foundation? Inside the silent valley of death, there is a mysterious fate, Sumo said calmly. Sumo didn't have much patience left. He wanted to meet Mu Jinghong immediately and confront him. Everything Sumo said was the truth. However, the truth was often hard to believe. Enchantment prided himself as a wise man, and Sumo's words couldn't withstand scrutiny, because everything was really illogical. Half a month, she suddenly advanced to the intermediate stage of the core formation stage. From Enchantment's point of view, there was only one possibility. Sumo was originally a core formation cultivator. Sumo was the same as Mu Jinghong. She had always been hiding her abilities and lurked in the 5 wheels. Half a month ago, the soul lamps of her 7 core formation cultivators all extinguished. Enchantment was shocked. Now that he thought about it, they must have been killed by Mu Jinghong and Sumo. There was a mysterious fate in the silent valley of death. That was even more laughable. Gods came to bury their dead, and immortals returned to silence. Who in the entire White Bone mainland could enter the silent valley of death? Even the deity Tribulation couldn't, let alone Sumo. Sumo, do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Actually, Enchantment was no longer calm. Think about it. If Sumo really wanted to lie to him, how could there be so many loopholes? The Selectin sect attack was indeed outside of Enchantment's plan. This was where he was inferior to Yang Tianxiao. Yang Tianxiao had miscalculated Mu Jinghong's true combat abilities, but he had predicted the Selectin sect's actions. Yin Zhongmo, on the other hand, had miscalculated. However, Yang Tianxiao was still trying his best to control everything. Yin Zhongmo had lost his composure. Sumo Dai. The Earthwheel Mountain was destroyed. Yin Zhongmo used his powerful cultivation to charge out. Moreover, all the bone cultivators who chased after him were killed by him. After all, the nascent soul cultivators of the Selectin sect were surrounding the Five Wheels' ancestral soul peak. Now, although Yin Zhongmo couldn't be considered a stray dog, he was in dire straits. His biggest chance to turn the tables was to obtain the last soul gathering pearl. Now that he had encountered Sumo, how could he let her go? Therefore, his hesitation only lasted for a moment. Moreover, he truly believed in his own judgment. Sumo was definitely a member of the Selectin sect. From his standpoint, he wanted to kill Sumo. Whoosh. Chapter 167. Chi. A ray of sword light went straight for Sumo. It was a greenish-gray sword with a bone-piercing, murderous aura. Yin Zhongmo, the head of the Earth Wheel Association, was definitely one of the best in the Five Wheels. Apart from the 7 nascent souls on the ancestral spirit peak, probably only the head of the Heaven Wheel Association, Yang Tianxiao, could suppress Yin Zhongmo. Advanced core formation realm cultivators were absolute masters. Yin Zhongmo's identity allowed him to have countless resources and treasures. How could the sword of an Earth Wheel expert be ordinary? It was a top-notch nascent soul-flying sword. Its name was Tsang Yuan. There was a saying in the Five Wheels: when Tsang Yuan moves, the Five Wheels are alarmed. It was a Five Wheels magical sword. Over the past few days, countless cultivators from the Selectin sect had died under Tsang Yuan's sword. It could be said that with Tsang Yuan in his hand, it would be difficult for anyone below the nascent soul realm to fight him. Tsang Yuan was like a dragon with a ray of green light. Sumo took out her immortal beheading sword to meet the ray of sword light. Clang! The two swords clashed and instantly determined who was superior. Although the immortal beheading sword was also a nascent soul-level treasure, it couldn't be compared to Tsang Yuan. Why would a Heaven Wheel or Earth Wheel expert give a top-notch nascent soul-level treasure to Sumo? Sumo's nascent soul-level treasure was actually at the bottom of the nascent soul level. Compared to a core formation treasure, it was definitely superior. However, it met Yin Zhongmo. Sumo's nascent soul-level treasure couldn't be used. The superior was immediately determined. The immortal beheading sword was broken into two by Tsang Yuan's sword. Sumo's sword wasn't even worth mentioning in front of Yin Zhongmo. How could a reward from the sect surpass the heavenly weapon of an Earth Wheel expert? However, Sumo was still mentally prepared for this situation. It was just a pity for the sword. Furious Beheader flew out, and Sumo's bamboo pole went straight for Tsang Yuan. Open, Sumo mobilized all the spiritual energy in her body and poured it into the bamboo pole. She had absolute confidence in the bamboo pole. Boom! Crack! This didn't disappoint Sumo. The Tsang Yuan's sword was deflected. The two divine weapons were evenly matched. Yin Zhongmo was stunned. Sumo rarely fought on 5 wheels. That broken bamboo pole had never attracted anyone's attention. Yin Zhongmo had never imagined that the beggar's bamboo pole would be so powerful. Sumo actually had such a treasure on her? Yin Zhongmo naturally knew what grade the Tsang Yuan sword was. Could it be that Sumo's bamboo pole was 1 level higher? Soul, transforming divine weapon? Who is Sumo to the Selectin sect? How could he have such a precious treasure protecting him? Skeleton spy. However, Yin Zhongmo looked at Sumo and sneered coldly. Even if Sumo had a powerful magical weapon, he could still kill Sumo. Because he was Yin Zhongmo, one of the 5 seats. Chief Yin, I'm not a white bone spy. I'm a 5th wheel disciple. Sumo shouted. However, Yin Zhongmo didn't listen to her at all. Earth Chakra Pillar. Yin Zhongmo quickly formed seals with both hands. That was the top-notch Dharma spell of 5 wheels. In the air, black fog surged and spirit energy surged. In an instant, dozens of stone pillars appeared out of nowhere. Each stone pillar was 2 to 3 feet tall, as straight as a spear, and emitted a black glow. Sumo dodged left and right, finally dodging all of them and not being hit. However, Injomo's hand seal changed again. Prison of Transformation. Looking at the black glow, it suddenly became like a net, all connected. It was as dense as weaving. The entire stone forest instantly turned into an array net, trapping Sumo in it. Sumo was stunned. Injomo's technique was definitely a domain that he had yet to touch. It was too magical. Sorcery. Currently, it was Sumo's weak spot. Whoosh, whoosh. Sumo could only pick up the broken bamboo pole and try to force his way out with a whistling sound. Wherever the bamboo pole went, the stone forest would indeed shatter. However, when Sumo rushed forward, she found that there were still countless stone pillars in front of her. Within the array, the stone forest seemed to be endless and could be reborn after death. At this moment, Sumo couldn't see Injomo anymore. She was completely trapped in the stone array by Injomo, as if she was trapped in another world. Injomo stood in the air, frowning slightly as he watched Sumo rush left and right. At this moment, he calmed down a little. He felt that Sumo's behavior didn't seem to be that of Selectin sect disciple. Therefore, he didn't kill her immediately, but waited. At this moment, a 5 Wheels Foundation establishment cultivator happened to pass by. Disciple Zhao Yunxing pays his respects to Master Yin. The person who came was Zhao Yunxing, who was chasing after Sumo. Zhao Yunxing was experienced and knowledgeable, so he naturally recognized the Earth Wheel Master. "Which sect are you from?" Injomo asked. "Master Yin, I'm from the Heaven Wheel lineage. Zhao Ken is my uncle, but unfortunately, he just died in battle." Zhao Yunxing said sadly. If it was in the past, Injomo wouldn't have been nice to a Heaven Wheel disciple. But now he could only sigh as he looked at the injured and distressed Zhao Yunxing. He knew that Zhao Ken was in the late stage of the Heaven Wheel Foundation establishment. "Stay by my side. I'm fine, so I'll make sure you don't die," Injomo said. Zhao Yunxing was about to agree. However, from outside the formation, he could see Su Mo trapped in the stone forest formation. "Master Yin, why did you trap Junior Brother Sumo?" "Junior Brother Sumo?" Hee. Injomo sneered. In just half a month, Sumo advanced from Chi refinement to core formation. He was brought up the mountain by Mu Jinghong, and they have a master-servant relationship. Therefore, he should be a spy in White Bones. "I was about to kill him," Zhao Yunxing hurriedly said. "Master Yin, I just saw Sumo kill a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator from the Selectin sect with my own eyes. He saved me." Injomo couldn't help but frown. A late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator couldn't be considered a small cultivator. With the current situation, if Sumo was really a cultivator from the Selectin sect, there was no need for him to hide his identity anymore. Could it be that Sumo was really on the side of 5 Wheels? Injomo hesitated slightly. And at this moment, boom, boom, crack, an earth-shattering noise shook the entire 5 Wheels mountain. In the direction of the Sky Wheel Mountain, clouds of fire rose into the sky. It was as if a rain of fire had fallen within a radius of hundreds of miles. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Blood mist surged. Thousands of soul lights soared into the sky. The sounds of battle could actually be heard for hundreds of miles. All kinds of magic treasures collided in the sky. The Sky Wheel Mountain is broken. Injomo's expression suddenly changed. The Earth Wheel Mountain was broken because he was the only core formation cultivator supporting it. Moreover, Injomo didn't defend it to the death because he still had a trump card. However, the Sky Wheel Mountain had many soldiers and tens of thousands of disciples. Why couldn't they defend the main peak? Once the Sky Wheel Mountain was broken, wouldn't the 5 Wheels really be finished? Damn it! Injomo looked in the direction of the Sky Wheel Mountain and gritted his teeth. "Yang Tianxiao, you're really useless." Although Injomo scolded Yang Tianxiao, he couldn't just sit back and watch. "Master Yin, believe me, I'm definitely not a spy in White Bones. I'm going to the Sky Wheel Mountain to confront Mu Jinghong, Sumo shouted in the array again. At this moment, he was already holding the ancient secular fan in his hand. Sumo wasn't begging for mercy. He was giving Injomo another chance. Because the ancient secular fan opened, Sumo didn't know how much power it had. Chapter 168. The destruction of the Sky Wheel Mountain shocked the five wheels. On the Water Wheel Mountain, Shui Linglong's blue dress fluttered in the wind, and her gaze turned slightly cold. The Sky Wheel Mountain was actually breached first? This was far beyond her expectations. Could five wheels really not support it? On the ancestral spirit peak, the blind ancestor's expression changed. He had been sitting cross-legged in the cave all this time. Everything outside the cave seemed to have nothing to do with him. He seemed to be waiting for something. Meanwhile, there were 9 nascent souls hovering in the air around the ancestral spirit peak. The 9 nascent soul cultivators were led by the ancestral patriarch of the Selectan sect. The 7 nascent soul cultivators on the ancestral spirit peak hadn't left the cave. The ancestral spirit peak was in a deadlock. The nascent soul cultivators of both sides were unexpectedly not involved in this battle. This was a scene worth pondering over. It was a delicate balance. Hundreds of miles away, the head of the Earth Wheel Association, In Zhongmo, looked at the Tianwen Mountain with a grave expression. The Heaven Wheel Meridian was the biggest meridian of the 5-wheel meridian. Even In Zhongmo had placed his hopes on the Heaven Wheel Meridian's counterattack. However, the Heaven Wheel was broken. At that moment, Zhao Yunxing's face was pale, and his eyes were filled with despair. Let's go. It was unknown who In Zhongmo's words were directed at. However, he directly brought Zhao Yunxing in the direction of the Sky Wheel Mountain. At the same time, Sumo suddenly realized that the stone pillar beside him had disappeared. Evidently, In Zhongmo chose to believe in Sumo at the last moment. Actually, In Zhongmo had saved him. As soon as the spell disappeared, Sumo also went straight to Tianwen Mountain. At this time, the Sky Wheel Mountain was already a sea of fire. Almost every lineage of the 5 wheels had their own mountain-protecting grand array. The earth-shattering sound, just now, was the result of the Celestial Wheel Mountain's grand formation being broken. Both sides fell into a fierce battle. In the void, Injomo's speed was extremely fast, while Sumo was slightly slower. The Sky Wheel Mountain was close. At this time, the Sky Wheel Mountain was really a charaba. The sky was covered with corpses. Although the Selectan sect had the upper hand, they also suffered heavy casualties. The defense of Sky Wheel Mountain was not just for show, injuring 1,000 enemies, injuring oneself 800. In order to break the Sky Wheel formation, the Selectan sect had paid a huge price. If it wasn't for the Fire Wheel faction's elders defecting to the enemy, the Earth Wheel faction would be empty, causing these 2 factions to fall too early. Then, the Selectan sect concentrated most of its forces to attack Sky Wheel Mountain. The Sky Wheel Mountain might not be breached. However, it was still broken. At this time, there was a chaotic battle on the Sky Wheel Mountain. The leader of the Selectan sect, by Zongshan, naturally wanted to fight Yang Tianxiao. Both of them were dressed in white, and they stood facing each other in the void, looking like celestial beings. They were standing at the highest point of the void, and there was no one standing in a 10-mile radius around them. These 2 were at the peak of the advanced stage of the core formation realm. In a battle of that level, most of the people present would not be able to interfere. As for Yang Tianxiao and Bai Zongshan, they probably did not wish for anyone to intervene. At this moment, the ancestral soul was not engaged in battle. Therefore, the duel between these 2 people represented a certain meaning. Bai Zongshan's face carried a hint of arrogance. This was because reclaiming the 5 wheels was the long-cherished wish of the successive leaders of the Selectan sect. He was about to fulfill this long-cherished wish. Yang Tianxiao's face, on the other hand, was very calm. It must be said that Yang Tianxiao's temperament was definitely enough to be a leader of a sect, or even a leader of a sect. Even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, his expression would not change. Leader Yang, You are known as the number one person below the nascent soul stage in the five wheels. But you did not expect this day to come, right? Bai Zongchen looked at Yang Tianxiao. He. Yang Tianxiao smiled faintly. Leader Bai, what's wrong today? Has the outcome been decided? It is still unknown who will emerge victorious. Leader Yang, you are a smart person. In the current situation, the outcome has already been decided. My select and sect just does not want to destroy the five wheels. You should understand that the two sects share the same root. As long as you sincerely pledge allegiance, my select and sect will not kill a single one of you. Bai Zongchen said, Leader Yang, if you pledge allegiance, I am willing to share the white bones with you. Bai Zongchen added, Leader Yang, if you pledge allegiance, I am willing to share the white bones with you. Yang Tianxiao laughed and shook his head. The two sects share the same root. The five wheels, do not have such ancestral teachings. The five wheels do not recognize the white bones. Yang Tianxiao, merely miscalculated Mu Jinghong's combat power. Otherwise, how could you be so arrogant? Even so, do you know what other tricks I have up my sleeve? Why didn't I pledge allegiance to you? Yang Tianxiao's expression was calm. He did not panic in the face of danger. If you want me, Yang Tianxiao, to pledge allegiance to you, you must defeat the sword in my hand. Yang Tianxiao did not want to say anything else. He indeed had trump cards that he had yet to show. However, if he could defeat Bai Zongchen, he would be able to turn the situation around. The relationship between the white bones and the five wheels could not be severed. Yang Tianxiao had actually heard about this a long time ago. However, he did not want to admit it. There were many things that he did not need to know. Yang Tianxiao had his own Tao. However, he knew that the select and sect definitely did not want to kill the five wheels. They wanted to reclaim the five wheels. The select and sect had its own obsession. Therefore, the 9 nascent soul realm cultivators on the ancestral spirit peak did not attack. They did not even use their full strength against the water wheels and wind wheels. Yang Tianxiao understood. After this battle, there could only be one immortal sect in the northern region of the Bone Mainland. It was either the five wheels or the white bones. Swoosh! Looking again, Yang Tianxiao grabbed at the void with one hand. A white longsword gradually appeared in Yang Tianxiao's hand. It was a white longsword that was nearly 5 feet long. The sword emitted a faint, milky white light. The sword was thin and long, and its material was very special. The white bone divine sword. Bai Zongchen narrowed his eyes when Yang Tianxiao took out the sword. The white bone divine sword was once the treasure of the select and sect. It is a soul transformation divine weapon. Oh, Yang Tianxiao shook his head and smiled faintly. Sect leader Bai, you are wrong. This sword is called a dream of daylight. It was passed down by the Shengluan ancestral master. However, it is indeed a soul transformation divine weapon. A dream of daylight? Haha. Bai Zongchen looked up to the sky and laughed coldly. The Shengluan ancestral master not only deceived the Shengluan ancestral master, but also deceived himself and others. Can a dream of daylight forget the past? Without the white bones, how could the five wheels exist? Yang Tianxiao's sword seemed to have angered Bai Zongchen. Even if he has forgotten many things, he does not dare to forget this sword. Take a look. With that, Bai Zongchen raised his hand. A slender sword also appeared in his hand. That sword was almost exactly the same as Yang Tianxiao's sword, except for the color. It was an ink-colored sword. Yang Tianxiao looked at the sword and was slightly stunned. He did not know that the select and sect had such a sword. This sword is called Ink Blood. White bones and ink blood are a pair of divine weapons. Unfortunately, Bai Zongchen did not continue to retreat, but pointed the sword at Yang Tianxiao and said sternly, Today I will fight for the white bones ancestral master from 40,000 years ago. Yang Tianxiao, those who do not surrender will die. Bai Zongchen's aura suddenly rose. The ink blood divine sword was surrounded by black fog. Then it suddenly turned into a black light and went straight for Yang Tianxiao. Yang Tianxiao begged for death. Yang Tianxiao's tone was resolute, and his expression suddenly turned cold. Such an expression rarely appeared on the face of the chief of the Sky Wheel sect. They had given each other a different meaning in this battle. White Bones and the Five Wheels would fight. A dream of daylight instantly brought along a tail of light that was more than 10 feet long and met the ink blood divine sword. White Bones and ink blood had not been seen for 40,000 years. Chapter 169. Injongmo, the second most powerful cultivator below the nascent soul level of the Five Wheels. His appearance was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. Wherever they passed, the Selectin sect's disciples retreated. For a moment, no one could resist. The Tsang sword's sword aura soared into the sky, directly carving out a bloody path on the Sky Wheel Mountain. One man and one sword. The sea of people on both sides parted like a tide. Who would dare to compete with him? Chief of the Earth Wheel level. Chief Ink. All the disciples of the fifth cycle, regardless of which cycle they were from, were cheering in excitement. However, the Selectin sect had its own experts. In an instant, a black shadow blocked Injongmo's path. Dressed in a black dress, she stood alone coldly. That was none other than Mu Jinghong, who had amazed the White Bones for 3,000 years. Mu Jinghong. Injongmo's eyes were cold. Master Yin. Mu Jinghong looked at Injongmo with a calm expression. The main peak of the Earth Chakra lineage has been destroyed, but Chief Yin was able to escape unscathed. She's indeed powerful. Shameless bitch. Injongmo pointed his sword at Mu Jinghong. Five Wheels, have treated you well, but I didn't expect you to be a spy in White Bones. You deceived your master and destroyed your ancestors. Today, I will kill you to avenge the death of my Wu Luan disciples, deceiving my master and destroying my ancestors. Mu Jinghong sneered and looked at Injongmo calmly. But you can't kill me. Hee. Injongmo laughed coldly. The Tsang sword in his hand glowed with a greenish-gray light. The power of a late-stage core formation cultivator poured into the sword, and the sword radiance was several meters long. The Tsang sword let out a dragon's roar as it flew towards Mu Jinghong. But now, Mu Jinghong's cultivation level seemed to be only at the peak late foundation establishment stage. However, in reality, Mu Jinghong had already killed several fifth wheel core formation cultivators. What's more, it was rumored that the two advanced stage completion level cultivators that Yang Tianxiao secretly sent out were killed by Mu Jinghong. Mu Jinghong could kill completion stage cultivators. That was definitely not a legend. The current Mu Jinghong was the #1 public enemy of Five Wheels. Almost all the fifth wheel disciples wanted to kill her. However, no one could kill her. Song Yuan moved, shocking the Five Wheels. The battle between Injongmo and Mu Jinghong was the second battle of the Sky Wheel Mountain, and it was not inferior to the battle between Bai Zongchen and Yang Tianxiao. The firmament sword transformed into a streak of light and shot towards Mu Jinghong. When Mu Jinghong saw Song Yuan's sword coming towards him, he did not move at all. However, she formed a seal with her hands. It was a Dao technique. Whoosh! With Mu Jinghong at the center, rings of purple light spread out like ripples, instantly covering a radius of 1,000 feet. Mu Jinghong seemed to be standing in a purple lake. The purple light fluctuated and dispersed. It wasn't the power of foundation building, nor was it the power of core formation. That purple light seemed to be an unknown power of a cultivator. Injongmo's sword actually stopped 3 zhang away from Mu Jinghong's body. The sword of Tsang Yuan was invincible. However, it had actually fallen prey to Mu Jinghong's spell. What kind of spell was that? Mu Jinghong's hands were glowing with purple light. The purple light was like an electric arc. Chi. The water in the purple lake rippled and electric arcs appeared. Go! Mu Jinghong shouted. Looking at the purple lake again, a huge wave suddenly appeared, directly sweeping up Song Yuan's sword and heading straight for Injongmo. Mu Jinghong's technique was too powerful. Song Yuan was sent flying. However, Injongmo was still an Earthwheel chief. His cultivation and combat experience were extraordinary. Song Yuan flew over with a murderous aura. Injomo sneered and waved his long sleeves. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind blew, and the Song Yuan sword landed obediently in his hands. After all, it was his life treasure. Since Song Yuan was ineffective, the Earthwheel Chief started to form a seal. Earth Vein! Injomo formed a seal with both hands, and a green mountain peak that was hundreds of meters tall appeared in the air. Furthermore, the mountain peak gradually solidified and didn't look like an illusion. That mountain really looked like the main peak of the Earthwheel. It was an extremely terrifying scene. Did the Earthwheel Chief actually capture the main peak of the Earthwheel Mountain? What kind of extravagance was that? Boom! That green mountain directly pressed down on Mu Jinghong. Mu Jinghong raised his eyebrows. He had to admit that Injomo's technique was indeed powerful. However, it still couldn't break through Mu Jinghong's purple light secret technique. Whoosh! Mu Jinghong spread out his hands like a swan spreading its wings. The entire purple lake surged with monstrous waves. The purple light was like water rushing up to the sky. Boom! Rumble! The purple light rushed up, and the green mountain pressed down. The two techniques met in the air. The shocking power seemed to have a physical form as it scattered in all directions. In the sky above the Earth wheel, endless energy spread outwards. Mu Jinghong's move seemed to be within Injomo's expectations. The corner of his mouth curled into a sneer, and the seal in his hands changed. Cloud collapse. Bang! Whoosh! Originally, the green mountain and the purple light were equally matched. The two forces pressed against each other. However, Injomo's seal changed. The green mountain of the Earth wheel suddenly shattered. In an instant, the purple light rushed up to the sky. The green mountain broke into pieces and turned into thousands of stone swords. They fell through the cracks in the purple light. Every stone sword was 3 feet long, and there were thousands of them. Earth Vein, Cloud Collapse. That was the nascent soul technique of the 5 wheels. Injomo gritted his teeth and swore to kill Mu Jinghong. The moment the cloud collapsed, Mu Jinghong's expression changed. Thousands of swords rained down from the sky. Sky purple cloud screen. Mu Jinghong also changed his technique. Whoosh, whoosh. At that moment, waves surged up from the purple lake. Only 3 feet below Mu Jinghong's feet was a patch of purple light. The rest of the purple light instantly turned into a 3-layered semicircle defense that covered Mu Jinghong. Chi! Bang, bang. In the air, green smoke rose and light overflowed. Injomo's thousands of stone swords all landed on Mu Jinghong's purple screen. It was a battle between techniques. Boom! Crack! Mu Jinghong's purple screen was directly broken by Injomo's technique. However, the thousands of stone swords were reduced by half. On the second layer of defense, smoke and dust rose, and sizzling sounds could be heard. Boom! Bang! It had to be said that Injomo's technique was extremely powerful. Each stone sword contained the power of a late-stage core formation cultivator, and at that moment, it was close to the power of a nascent soul. Injomo no longer held back. The second layer of purple screen was broken. Mu Jinghong frowned. The reputation of an Earthwheel leader was well-deserved. It seemed that his defense wasn't good enough. Open, Mu Jinghong couldn't just defend. Otherwise, if one of the stone swords hit her, it would be very dangerous. Injomo's technique was too overbearing. Mu Jinghong's hand seal changed. Suddenly, the last layer of violet energy lit up, and then it formed a circle. Immediately, a purple light hole formed in the air. Whoosh! In an instant, all the stone swords were absorbed and disappeared without a trace. Space-time technique. Injomo's expression darkened. That was because it was a technique that even he couldn't use. The Selectin sect actually had such a technique passed down from its founder. At this moment, the purple light under Mu Jinghong's feet was only 1 foot in radius. That was barely enough for her to stand. It seemed that Mu Jinghong's purple light wasn't endless. At this moment, Mu Jinghong slowly raised her arm again. On her right hand, a black sword that was like water slowly emerged. Enchantment prepared to attack again. However, suddenly, the sword in Mu Jinghong's hand paused, and her expression changed. That was because a young man in green suddenly appeared and stood between her and Enchantment. Senior Mu, long time no see. Chapter 170. Sumo. In the air, Mu Jinghong's expression was cold. He held his black sword and was about to fight to the death with Enchantment. However, Sumo stood in the middle of the battlefield in a green robe. This caused Mu Jinghong's hand to tremble slightly. Actually, he had been thinking about Sumo. Senior Sister Mu, long time no see. Sumo repeated what she had just said. He looked at Mu Jinghong with a complicated expression. Just now, he had personally witnessed Mu Jinghong's battle with Enchantment. That battle represented the battle between the Five Wheels and the Selectant Sect. He knew that Mu Jinghong's hands must have been stained with the blood of countless Five Wheels cultivators. What? Sumo asked. Sumo. Mu Jinghong looked at Sumo. That black sword trembled slightly, rippling like water, but it didn't drop down. However, Mu Jinghong's gaze was gentle and filled with love. Peak middle stage, core, formation realm. Sumo, congratulations. Mu Jinghong smiled warmly and warmly. The trip to the Silent Death Valley was not wrong. A smile that could topple the world was only for you. In front of Sumo, Mu Jinghong was a real woman. However, Sumo's face was tense. At this moment, Sumo's heart was fried. He really did not understand why Mu Jinghong was from the Selectant Sect. Although the Five Wheels had internal strife, they were still from the same sect. In times of crisis, they should be united. Senior Sister Mu, why? Sumo continued to ask. However, Mu Jinghong only smiled faintly. Sumo, there's no why. I'm a skeleton man. Not just me, but Huang Zhe, Deng Zhong, Shun Lang, and so on. We're all from the Selectant Sect. What? Sumo's hand, which was holding the bamboo pole, had turned slightly pale. He could not believe his ears. However, Mu Jinghong had said it himself. Sumo had no choice but to believe it. For 40,000 years, recovering the Five Wheels has been the long-cherished wish of the Selectant Sect's disciples. Today's battle had been planned for hundreds of years. We are all spies of the Selectant Sect. The sword in Mu Jinghong's hand finally stopped shaking. Actually, the founder of the Five Wheels, Shunglun, was a disciple of Whitebone. Shocking talent. However, 40,000 years ago, he went astray, killed his master, betrayed his sect, and established his own Five Wheels. Unfortunately, no one in the Selectant Sect is a match for him. The hatred between the two sects continues to this day. Mu Jinghong slowly said to Sumo, "Now it's time for the past 40,000 years to come to an end." 40,000 years of karma? Sumo couldn't help but sneer. He really didn't care about the past. Senior Martial Sister Mu, Sumo doesn't understand what happened 40,000 years ago. All I know is that I'm a disciple of Five Wheels. I, Sumo, am an inner disciple of the Five Wheels, Win-Lun faction. Yes. Mu Jinghong faintly smiled. Sumo, you're right. Mu Jinghong didn't seem angry at Sumo's words. This was because in his eyes and heart, Sumo was more like a child who hadn't awakened. Sumo, those who surrender will not be killed. Mu Jinghong said, I, Sumo, would rather die than surrender. Sumo answered. At this moment, Sumo had already pointed the bamboo pole in her hand at Mu Jinghong. Sumo, have you forgotten how many people in the Five Wheels wanted to kill you? Mu Jinghong calmly asked. That was in the past. Sumo answered. Actually, Mu Jinghong was right. Fire Lun, Wind Lun, and even Sky Lun had wanted to kill Sumo. However, in front of the destruction of Five Wheels, Sumo could forget all of this. 9 revolutions of Wind Lun, overturning the universe. Mu Jinghong looked at Sumo and smiled. What a joke. They all wanted to kill you because they didn't understand what the 9th son of Wind Lun meant. Mu Jinghong's words seemed to be for Sumo to hear, but also seemed to be muttering to himself. Sumo didn't understand, and neither did anyone else. Sumo, Mu Jinghong's voice was slightly low. Once you enter the inner sect, You will be a servant for 3 years. Do you still remember your oath? Sumo, I will never dare to forget. Sumo's reply was the same as before. However, his voice was extremely low. Killer Master Pu, you went against your oath. Then, where will you go today? Mu Jinghong actually looked at Sumo with ridicule. First, righteousness, then personal feelings. Sumo's grip on the bamboo pole tightened. She said solemnly, Senior Mu, if I can kill you, I will definitely end my own life. If I can't kill you, I am willing to die under your sword for the sake of 5 wheels. Hee. Mu Jinghong kept looking at Sumo. In his eyes, Sumo's appearance was reflected. Gradually, Mu Jinghong's eyes became a little hazy. Sumo, you're really funny and cute. No one knew what was in Mu Jinghong's heart, because no one knew who Mu Jinghong was. The void was mysterious and blurry. Mu Jinghong looked at Sumo, and Sumo also looked at Mu Jinghong. Time passed, and nothing changed. At that moment, both of them seemed to be in a daze. However, their hearts were not in the same space and time. Sumo had Mu Jinghong in her eyes, but Mu Jinghong didn't have Sumo in his eyes. Sumo didn't understand Mu Jinghong's heart. At that moment, a cultivator in white suddenly pounced on Sumo. The hare leaped, and the falcon swooped down in a flash. It was a core formation cultivator from the Selectant sect. Sumo and Mu Jinghong had been facing each other for a long time. Not far away, Injomo had not made a move, because he wanted to see how Sumo would choose. At that moment, he already believed in Sumo. However, the core formation cultivator from the Selectant sect wanted to sneak an attack, while Sumo was in a daze. In fact, the two sects were in a chaotic battle. The skeletal cultivator's method was not wrong. Kill those who can kill, and the victor is king, regardless of the method. That was a cultivator at the peak of the intermediate stage of the core formation realm, the same level as Sumo. His sword was like a rainbow, and he was like the clouds. That sword was the essence of his sword, and it was almost unstoppable. At that moment, Sumo looked determined, but in reality, her heart was in a mess. She wasn't prepared for that sword at all. Her thoughts were all on Mu Jinghong. But Injomo couldn't let the skeletal cultivator succeed. However, there was one person faster than him. It was Mu Jinghong. In an instant, Mu Jinghong's murderous aura appeared. It was almost an instinct. The black light broke the sky, and it shocked the world. Mu Jinghong didn't move. However, the black light was almost 100 feet long. Mu Jinghong only waved his sword, and the sword ray was like a long whip. Poof! Ah! The skeletal cultivator who was charging towards Sumo was split into 2 by Mu Jinghong and fell into the sky. Wow! At that moment, the entire crowd was in an uproar. Other than Yang Tianxiao and Bai Zong, who were still fighting, the cultivators from the 2 sects instinctively separated. Behind Injomo were all Fifth Wheel disciples, and behind Mu Jinghong were all Selectant sect disciples. However, the difference was that all the Selectant sect disciples kept a distance from Mu Jinghong. That was a female demon. The Selectant sect was led by 8 core formation cultivators. The 8 core formation cultivators were either in the late or intermediate stages. The early stage core formation cultivators were already dead. The disciples from the 2 sects looked at Mu Jinghong in fear. He actually killed the core formation cultivators of the 2 sects. Only Mu Jinghong was so crazy. Junior Sister Muyu, the late-stage core formation cultivator from the Selectant sect, had a cold expression. The other core formation cultivators beside him were also furious. The Selectant sect disciples were in an uproar. I will kill whoever dares to touch Sumo. Mu Jinghong stood in the air and said each word clearly. At that moment, Mu Jinghong's long hair had already scattered. That sentence was like an oath that shook the 5 wheels. However, no one understood Mu Jinghong, including Sumo. Chapter 171. Mu Jinghong, you're crazy. The white-bone late-stage core formation cultivator who questioned Mu Jinghong shouted. Ha ha ha. Mu Jinghong laughed strangely. Unfortunately, she didn't turn around and said coldly, So what if I'm crazy? Other than me, no one can touch Sumo? Who in the Selectan sect can do anything to me? Mu Jinghong's aura seemed to increase inexplicably. Elders, don't forget that I, Mu Jinghong, am free to come and go. I am not restricted by white bone. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As Mu Jinghong spoke, 17 cultivators flew out from among the Selectan sect disciples. They wore black masks and wore black robes. They each held an immortal sword and stood between Mu Jinghong and the Selectan sect. The black robes of these 17 cultivators were very special. The Selectan sect disciples were mainly dressed in white, but the 17 in black were very eye-catching. This was because they were all wearing the Ink Soul battle armor. Their swords were all pointed at the Selectan sect disciples. The leader of the group gently took off his mask. Anyone who dares to take a step forward will be killed without mercy. The cultivator's voice was cold. This person was Shunlang. At this moment, if all the Ink Soul Death Warriors took off their masks, Sumo would see Huang Zhe and Deng Zhong who had come back from the dead. Moreover, Huang Zhe and Deng Zhong were already at core formation. At this moment, high up in the clouds, Guan Xiong was looking down at everything. Silencers? 17 silencers. Guan Xiong inhaled a breath of cold air. 17 silencers meant 17 undead, because silencers could always come back from the dead. As long as their master was not dead, they could be reborn. However, this rebirth required a bit of time. Moreover, every time they died, their cultivation level would rise by 1 realm. However, they would forget everything about their previous life and only remember their master. There were 17 silencers. Given enough time, they could practically sweep through the entire world. 17 silencers were protecting Mu Jinghong. Where did she come from? This power definitely shouldn't exist on the Bone Continent. Guan Xiong felt a chill run down his spine. Even on the chaotic God's mainland, or even in Heaven City, there weren't many people like him. Skywheel Mountain. Given the current situation, no one from the Selectan sect dared to step forward. The late core formation elder's expression changed, but he didn't dare to say anything. If they really angered Mu Jinghong, they would definitely not have a good ending. Sumo, don't worry. None of them would dare to touch you. Mu Jinghong looked at Sumo and smiled sweetly. However, Sumo felt that there seemed to be a bloody light in Mu Jinghong's eyes. You mind? Mu Jinghong's expression was complicated. That smile was even more bizarre. Senior Sister Muyu. Sumo really didn't know what to say. What was Mu Jinghong's position? Sumo, if she doesn't kill you, you will kill her. The person who spoke was the head of the Earth Wheel level, In Jomo. He didn't understand Mu Jinghong's actions either. However, Mu Jinghong was definitely a huge threat. Although the bamboo pole in Sumo's hand was pointing at Mu Jinghong, it was trembling slightly. Sumo had no way to repay Mu Jinghong's kindness. If Mu Jinghong wanted to kill him, he should let him. It would be very difficult for him to attack Mu Jinghong. However, Mu Jinghong was now the enemy of the 5 wheels. Sumo, from this moment onwards, you and I are master and servant. From this moment onwards, our relationship as master and servant will cease to exist. The bloody light in Mu Jinghong's eyes faded slightly. Sumo didn't say anything. I'm here to destroy the 5 wheels. Sumo, if you have the ability, come and kill me. Mu Jinghong looked at Sumo with endless sorrow. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, nothingness to nothingness, nothingness to nothingness, nothingness to nothingness. 10,000 years of admiring the world of mortals, a lifetime of white bones. 10,000 years of admiring the world of mortals, a lifetime of white bones. Mu Jinghong seemed to have really gone crazy. She was reciting the poem on the ancient painting in her cave abode. A fleeting glimpse. If the bones were not destroyed, how could the world of mortals exist? Sumo frowned. She didn't put down a bamboo pole. Senior Sister Mu, you can give me a reason. Why are you doing this? There's no reason. Mu Jinghong sneered. Sumo, make your move. Chief, Ian is right. If you don't kill me, I'll kill you. With that, Mu Jinghong slowly raised her right hand. The black light sword seemed to be formed from black water. Mu Jinghong's sword was too special. Swoosh, chi. Mu Jinghong's body moved, and the black sword spat out a light as it charged at Sumo. That sword was extremely fast. Sumo frowned and instinctively retreated to the right. However, Mu Jinghong's sword light suddenly expanded. Chi. Sumo hesitated, and her movements were slightly slower. Mu Jinghong's sword light swept across Sumo's sleeve. It was like a green butterfly dancing in the air. Mu Jinghong sneered. Her sword did not stop, and it charged at Sumo again. The bamboo pole in Sumo's hand did not move at all. Sumo hoped that Mu Jinghong would say something. However, Mu Jinghong did not say anything. Swoosh, swoosh. Mu Jinghong's sword moved twice, but Sumo dodged them both. At this moment, Sumo finally made her move. Her bamboo pole blocked Mu Jinghong's sword, and then she pushed it outwards. Senior sister Mu. Sumo sighed. I'm no longer your senior sister. Mu Jinghong looked coldly at Sumo. Then, she waved her hand, and the sword in her hand drew another black light, slashing at Sumo. Sumo, what are you doing? Injomo frowned and yelled. Even heroes have a weakness for a beautiful woman. How could Sumo deal with Mu Jinghong like this? Hearing Injomo's yell, Sumo's bamboo pole finally pointed at Mu Jinghong. Core formation energy poured into it, and the bamboo pole instantly emitted a green light. Chi! The sound of something slicing through the air could be heard. Sumo's bamboo pole was originally aimed at Mu Jinghong's sword. However, Mu Jinghong flipped his wrist, and the black sword and bamboo pole crossed each other. Sumo was stunned, because at that moment, Mu Jinghong's heart was wide open, and he actually wanted to use his heart to block Sumo's bamboo pole. That way, Sumo's bamboo pole could directly penetrate Mu Jinghong's heart. That was courting death. At that moment, Sumo was horrified. Fortunately, Sumo's bamboo pole could be used as she pleased. With a light flick of her wrist, the bamboo pole slid past Mu Jinghong's body. Senior sister Mu Sumo. Mu Jinghong called softly. Endless tenderness flashed across her eyes, because Sumo did not want to kill her. However, there was a trace of sorrow. In an instant, Sumo was a little dazed. What was going on with Mu Jinghong? I have not killed the people of Windwheel. However, Mu Jinghong suddenly said calmly, because I want to kill them last. I will not leave a single person of the Windwheel faction alive. Mu Jinghong's lips curled into a beautiful curve, which was very bewitching. Sumo's body stiffened, and she raised her eyebrows. Mu Jinghong's words were like a dagger that pierced her heart. Mu Jinghong knew what Sumo cared about the most. For the 5 wheels, it was out of righteousness. For Windwheel, it was out of true love. At this moment, if Mu Jinghong's blood had already dyed Windwheel red, Sumo would have already attacked. Sumo would rather perish together with Mu Jinghong. He. Mu Jinghong caught the change in Sumo's expression. Her heart was proud and sorrowful. Mohan, listen up. Target Windwheel Mountain, Mu Jinghong ordered. First, she turned into a ray of light and headed straight for Windwheel Mountain. The 17 Mohan Death soldiers followed closely behind. The 17 black rays were like shooting stars. Windwheel. Chapter 172. Mu Jinghong headed straight for Windwheel Mountain, and Sumo followed closely behind. Windmill was definitely Sumo's limit. When the two of them left, the situation of the Heavenly Wheel continent instantly turned into a chaotic battle. Whoosh kill! The Slekton sect elder waved his hand, and the disciples of the two sects started fighting again. The head of the Earth Wheel level group, Injongmo, originally wanted to chase after Mu Jinghong, but he was surrounded by 3 elders of the Slekton sect who were at the same level as him. 1 against 3. Injongmo couldn't help but let out a long laugh. Haha, Chief Yang, if we don't die today, let's drink and chat merrily in the future. Injongmo's long hair fluttered in the wind, and the Tsangyuan's sword in his hand was like a flood dragon emerging from the sea. At this moment, he was already prepared to die. All right, Chief Ian, it's a deal. Yang Tianshao replied with a big laugh. He battled by Zhongshan. Both of them wielded divine swords and were equally matched. However, Yang Tianxiao could still reply to Injomo. Currently, the White Bone Sect's core formation cultivators had an absolute advantage in terms of both quantity and rank. On Tianlun Mountain, only Yang Tianxiao and Injomo could still hold on. As for the other fifth wheel disciples, if they didn't surrender, they would die. They couldn't stop the attack of the Selectan sect at all. Those White Bone core formation cultivators were almost unstoppable, each of them fighting against 100 enemies. Because on Tianlun Mountain, there were only 1 or 2 fifth wheel completion realm cultivators left. And this was because the Selectan sect had always been merciful. It was because they wanted 5 rounds of submission. Otherwise, they would have killed them a long time ago. Even so, the 5 wheels had suffered great losses from the internal strife and the great battle. Regardless of the outcome of this battle, the 5 wheels would never be the same again. At this time, it was unknown whether Yang Tianxiao and Injomo would regret their internal strife back then. This was especially true for Injomo. If the 7 Earth Wheel experts were still around, the situation wouldn't be like this. On the other hand, if Yang Tianxiao did not borrow a knife to kill, but instead shared information, if the Heaven Wheel and Earth Wheel experts were united against a common enemy, everything definitely wouldn't have turned out this way. Unfortunately, it was too late for regrets. However, people like Yang Tianxiao and Injomo definitely wouldn't regret it. They only knew how to fight to the death and think about how to turn the tables. There was no point in regretting anything. Moreover, they still had trump cards that they had yet to use. Yang Tianxiao had been waiting for the ancestral spirit peak to make a move. Injomo, on the other hand, placed his hopes on the patriarch beneath the crypt. Although he still couldn't get the soul-gathering pearl, it all depended on the old ancestor's choice. Water Wheel Mountain. The fire, earth, and heaven wheels were broken one after another. In particular, the fire wheel and earth wheel wheels only existed in name. However, there was no sign of battle on Water Wheel Mountain. The Water Wheel lineage had 36 mountains under it. Each of them had beautiful sceneries, just like the female cultivators of the Water Wheel sect. Now, the Water Wheel sect was like a piece of pure land. There was no smoke of war. At this moment, hundreds of miles around the Water Wheel Mountain, 5 core formation cultivators of the Selectan sect were sitting in 5 different positions in the air. However, none of them made a move. The leader was also an elder of the late stage of core formation. Thousands of White Bone disciples sealed off the entire Water Wheel Mountain. Other than that, Elder Hong from the Fire Wheel lineage and another Fire Wheel core formation cultivator were also present. Behind them were many disciples of the Fire Wheel sect who had pledged allegiance to them. There were at least 2,000 cultivators around the Water Wheel. They surrounded it, but didn't attack. At this moment, Shui Linglong was wearing a light blue dress and was standing on top of the Water Wheel. There was no sadness or joy on her face. Beside her, there were 2 core formation female cultivators. Both of them were beautiful. However, they were only at the early stage of core formation. The female cultivators of the Water Wheel lineage could really squeeze water out of their fingers. There were only 3 core formation cultivators of the Water Wheel lineage. At this moment, they were all looking at the battle situation of the other lineages. Shui Linglong's expression was calm. However, the 2 core formation female cultivators next to her were furious. Who would be willing to see their fellow sect members killed? Who would be willing to be a fish on a chopping block? The Heaven Wheel has been broken. Now, only the Wind Wheel lineage is left. At this moment, the leader of the late-stage core formation cultivators looked at Shui Linglong and said slowly, "I hope that when the time comes, Chief Water will keep her words." The other core formation cultivators also looked at Shui Linglong and the other 2 core formation cultivators of the Water Wheel lineage. Female cultivators. They were definitely rare resources in the cultivation world. The higher the level of female cultivators, the rarer they were. If they could find a core formation Tao companion, their cultivation would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. This was one of the reasons why they never attacked the Water Wheel lineage. Shui Linglong giggled. "Elder Gu, don't worry. As long as the other 4 lineages are broken, we will surrender. The water wheel lineage will never resist stubbornly. How can I, a woman, support the great cause of the 5 wheel lineages? When the time comes, us sisters and all the female cultivators of the water wheel lineage will be at your disposal. Shui Linglong's voice was seductive. What she said just now made the 2,000 disciples' imaginations run wild. At your disposal? How? Hee. Was there a need to say it clearly? Therefore, most cultivators had no intention to fight against the water wheel lineage. They only wanted to force the water wheel lineage to surrender and then enjoy themselves. However, the late-stage core formation cultivator, Elder Gu, raised his eyebrows. He knew that Shui Linglong's seduction technique was extraordinary. At this moment, Shui Linglong had been stalling for time. However, Elder Gu couldn't think of any other method she had. The sect wanted them to surrender if they could, so he waited patiently. As for female cultivators, that was definitely not what this late-stage core formation cultivator thought. However, that was what the other cultivators thought. Although Shui Linglong was smiling, she felt somewhat sad in her heart. At this moment, she stared at the windwheel mountain without blinking. That was her last hope. When the windwheel rises, I will return. However, there was no movement from the windwheel mountain. Would there be a turn for the better? Shui Linglong was already trying her best to stall for time. However, if things didn't go as she expected, then she might really force the water wheel lineage to surrender. She was a woman. She didn't want the water wheel lineage to collapse, because the 5 wheels only had themselves to blame for what happened today. She didn't have to carry everything on her back. In another part of the void, a black-robed old man riding on a huge pig was overlooking everything like Guan Xiong. AI. The old man in black let out a long sigh. That sigh was filled with helplessness and bewilderment. White bones, 5 wheels, they couldn't be cut, they were in a mess. Where should they go? Where should they go? It seemed like nobody had an answer in their hearts. No one could say who was fighting a righteous battle, but no one could say who was making the wrong choice. The old man in black held a long whip in his hand as he stared at the sky. Patriarch, what kind of secret are you hiding? Another 10,000 years have passed, and the war is starting again. What should I do? At the same time, on the ancestral soul peak, the blind patriarch also let out a long sigh. The reason being that the other 6 nascent soul cultivators on the ancestral spirit peak were waiting for his order. In reality, the blind patriarch was waiting for an immortal message from his master. However, that message didn't come. Could it be that the 5 wheels calamity this time was not as important as Sumo entering the windwheel realm? The blind patriarch felt sorrow in his heart. He couldn't wait any longer. Everything that had happened in the 5 wheels was actually reflected in his heart. If he didn't act, the 5 wheels would be destroyed. The 5 wheel sect had shed too much blood. Fight! Blind patriarch let out a shout. Boom! Chapter 173. The Ancestral Spirit Peak. The Ancestral Spirit Peak. 7 nascent soul chi shot into the sky. At that moment, the 5 wheels was like a sleeping dragon that had just woken up. Although the dragon was covered in wounds, its head was still there. The ancestral spirit was the dragon's head. Whoosh! The pressure of a nascent soul cultivator instantly filled the entire 5 wheels mountain range. A nascent soul cultivator was definitely a top cultivator on the Bone Mainland. At the same time, the 9 skeletal nascent souls outside the ancestral spirit peak also exuded a shocking aura. Whoosh! The 9 auras were stronger than the 5 wheels. If the 7 auras of the 5 wheels were like dragons rising into the sky, then the 9 auras were like pillars locking the dragon. Boom! 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 The 16 nascent soul cultivators hadn't actually fought yet, but the collision of their auras was already like a collision of lightning. Meanwhile, the sea of clouds above the ancestral spirit peak was stirred up. The shockwave of a nascent soul cultivator's attack affected the entire 5 wheels. It was equivalent to an indiscriminate attack. Poof! Poof! Ah! Blood and flesh splattered in the 5 wheels mountain range as screams sounded. In that instant, countless cultivators were either killed by the shock waves or killed in the rift. However, in the next instant, all the fighting stopped. Even Yang Tianxiao and Bai Zongqian were instantly separated. The disciples of the Five Wheels and the Selectant sect stood behind them. Everyone looked at the ancestral spirit peak. The Five Wheels sect and the Bone sect were both first-class sects in the northern region of the Bone mainland. Nascent soul cultivators were said to be at the highest level. That was because there seemed to be no soul transformation realm cultivators in either sect. In fact, this was a rather strange battle between the two sections, because their top cultivators hadn't made a move yet. In the cultivation world, it was usually the top battles that decided the outcome. For example, if there was a deity tribulation cultivator standing there, if that was the case, then all the battles would be meaningless, because a deity tribulation cultivator could solve everything with a raise of his hand. Yang Tianxiao narrowed his eyes and looked at the ancestral spirit peak. He was waiting for the ancestral spirit peak's response. Cultivator blind, are you all right? The green-robed ancestor of the White Bone sect stood in the air and asked the ancestral spirit peak. Fellow Taoist Azure Robe, I haven't seen you for 3,000 years. How have you been? The blind patriarch's voice came slowly. At the same time, a figure appeared in the ancestral soul void. It was none other than the blind patriarch. He was dressed in gray robes, and his hair was disheveled. However, his eyes were lifeless. Five Wheels Grandmaster, peak late-stage nascent soul realm. The blind patriarch was one level higher than the green-robed patriarch of the Selectant sect. There was a huge difference between the late stage of the nascent soul realm and the peak stage. At that moment, all the disciples of Five Wheels were shocked. Fellow Taoist blind, our Selectant sect doesn't want to kill too much. The green-robed patriarch looked at the blind patriarch and said, the blind patriarch sneered. You don't want to kill more people? In this battle, tens of thousands of our fifth-round disciples died. Almost all the core formation cultivators had died. Isn't this considered murder? The green-robed ancestor shook his head. The cycle of the heavenly Tao has its causes and effects. Back then, Sheng Luan's killing in the Selectant sect was not inferior to this. I'm sure fellow Taoist blind has heard of it. Five Wheels doesn't have any ancestral teachings. What fellow Taoist green-robed said is pure nonsense. The blind patriarch said. The green-robed patriarch sneered at the blind patriarch's words. Blind patriarch, although your eyes are blind, are you blind in your heart? Sheng Luan deceived his master and destroyed his ancestors. Back then, his hand was stained with white bones and blood. How could he leave behind ancestral teachings? Many of the techniques of the Five Wheels are actually evolved from the techniques of White Bones. You should know that. The White Bones are divided into 5 peaks and 100 confluents. The Five Wheels are divided into 5 wheels and ancestral souls. The layout of the 5 wheels is similar to that of White Bones. The root of the 5 wheels is White Bones. The green-robed patriarch looked at the blind patriarch. Whether you admit it or not, this is the truth. Today we killed the disciples of 5 wheels to wash away the sins of the 5 wheels. Fellow Taoist blind, we won't kill those who surrender. The green-robed patriarch's tone was stern. If the 5 wheels resisted to the end, then they could only kill. There had to be a result of this battle. However, the green-robed patriarch's words didn't move the blind patriarch. Sins? We won't kill those who surrender? The blind patriarch shook his head. Although the 5 wheels is getting worse with each generation and there are many unfilial disciples, I only recognize the teachings of the Holy Wheel. I don't know that the root of the 5 wheels is White Bones. At the same time, the blind patriarch's hands began to form a seal. They could only fight. There was nothing to say. The green-robed patriarch looked in the direction of the Selectant sect and thought to himself, Ancestral Master, everything seems to be as you said. I'd rather turn White Bones into ashes than let the 5 wheels turn again. Since the 5 wheels are so stubborn, there's no need to waste any more time. The green-robed patriarch took out a white token from his pocket. The token was made of a piece of human bone, and there was a faint white light on it. It was quite extraordinary. 2 words were engraved on the token: white bones. The other nascent soul ancestral masters of the Selectan sect looked at the token, and their expressions changed slightly. The 5 wheels was a special existence for the Selectan sect. It would be best if the 5 wheels surrendered, but if they didn't, the sect would be destroyed. In fact, the Selectan sect believed that the 5 wheels had the right to choose. However, the blind patriarch's words represented the final stance of the 5 wheels. Once the white bone token was used, blood would flow like a river. That meant that the Selectan sect would go all out to destroy the 5 wheels. Meanwhile, the white bone ancestral master, who was sitting cross-legged on top of the Baihui peak in the Selectan sect, had a vicious look in his eyes. In front of him, there was a special skull. The skull exuded an ancient aura, and there was a faint light flowing on it. If that's the case, let's kill them all. Then the Almighty finally stood up. At the same time, he waved his hand and put away the skull. He looked like a middle-aged cultivator, but his appearance was too terrifying. He formed a seal with both hands, and a teleportation formation appeared beneath his feet. The 2 sects were tens of thousands of miles apart, but he could travel there in an instant. If it did not fall after 5 rounds, then there was no need for him to wait any longer. Even if this soul transformation stage mighty figure stomped his foot, the entire white bone continent would tremble. He was the strongest person in the Selectan sect, and also the confidence of the entire Selectan sect. On Ancestral Spirit Peak, the green-robed ancestor raised the bone token and swept his gaze across the Ancestral Spirit Peak. Saint Wheel, you deceived your master, destroyed your ancestors, and killed your fellow disciples. Your crimes are unforgivable. Today, I, Qing Ez, will clean up the entrance on behalf of Frozen Cloud Fairy, the 7th-generation ancestor Whitebone. All Whitebone disciples, listen to my command. Suppress the chaos. Calm the chaos. Calm the chaos. The disciples of the Selectan sect howled like a mountain, their momentum surpassing the sea. Quell the chaos? Selectan sect's momentum was like a tidal wave, while the disciples of 5 wheels felt bitter. Was the fate of the 5 wheels really going to run out? Frozen Cloud Fairy? It sounded like a female cultivator's Taoist name. However, everything about the Saint Will Ancestral Master had always been a mystery for the 5 wheels. Chapter 174. 5 Rounds of Ancestral Teachings. In the void, the pig-riding old man in black shook his head and sneered. 10,000 years ago, wasn't it a sacred wheel ancestral behest that caused the 5-wheel war? 5-wheel original sin. The black-robed old man nodded in disappointment. That was because the 5 wheels really carried the original sin. It was just that the blind didn't know about the ancestral teachings. The 5 rounds of ancestral teachings were a curse. Back then, the 5 great disciples of Sheng Luan had fallen apart because of the Tao ancestors' teachings. At this moment, the black-robed old man saw everything, and his mind was in a daze. He still didn't show up for the nascent soul battle. However, he looked towards the north because he sensed an extremely powerful aura. Soul transformation? The black-robed old man raised his eyebrows. Could it be that the Selectan sect actually has a soul transformation stage cultivator? The black-robed old man could not help but tighten his grip on the black whip. If his soul came out, then everything would be different. In a higher layer of the void, Guanxiong had a playful smile on his face. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Hee. Interesting. Maybe this time I can really get 2 soul transformation corporeal bodies. But that Mu Jing Hong, Guanxiong looked like he was watching from the sidelines, looking very wretched. However, when he thought of Mu Jing Hong, he frowned. Skeletal ants. In his eyes, this battle between the 5 wheels and white bones was not a big battle at all. Mu Jing Hong was the only one he couldn't understand. Therefore, Guanxiong cast his gaze in the direction of the Windwheel Mountain. Windwheel Mountain. Mu Jing Hong had just arrived at the foot of the windmill. The battle on the ancestral spirit peak seemed to have nothing to do with her. Because Sumo had appeared, she could let Sumo witness her killing a fifth-wheel cultivator. Furthermore, she wanted to kill Sumo's most valued windmill man. Sumo belonged to Windmill. The Windwheel Mountain was the mountain that stood in front of her. At this moment, the entire Windwheel Mountain was in an extremely strange state. From afar, the Windwheel Mountain seemed to be shrouded in a green fog. Ripples of light could be seen in the mist. Like a sea of fog, the 9 peaks of the windwheels could not see clearly. However, they floated in the sea of fog. It was a very strange scene. The 9 peaks of the windmill were like a painting, and it was a floating painting. However, everyone knew that it was a formation. However, it was a formation that no one could understand. At this moment, there were thousands of white-boned disciples outside the Windmill Mountain, led by 4 core formation cultivators. Among them, the one with the highest cultivation level was at the peak of the intermediate stage of the completion level. According to the Selectant sect, the Windwheel sect was the weakest of the 5 wheels. There was not a single core formation cultivator in the Windmill Mountain. By sending out 4 core formation cultivators, the Selectant sect could be considered to be fully prepared. Back then, Mu Jinghong did not tell the Selectant sect about the true strength of the Windwheel lineage. However, it was Mu Jinghong's order to surround and not attack the Windwheel faction. Mu Jinghong had other arrangements for Windmill. In fact, even without Mu Jinghong's orders, they would not be able to withstand such a large array. The 4 white bone core formation cultivators were also helpless. They did not understand the array formation at all. Junior Sister Mu. The intermediate stage core formation cultivator saw that Mu Jinghong had arrived and hurried to talk to her. However, Mu Jinghong completely ignored him. Enter the array. Mu Jinghong waved her hand. However, she did not order the Selectant sect disciples outside the Windmill Mountain. Instead, she ordered the 17 Ink Soul Death warriors who followed closely behind her. Then, Mu Jinghong took the lead and entered the sea of fog of the Windmill Mountain. None of the 17 Ink Soul Death warriors hesitated. However, Shunlang was in front, and the others followed closely behind. They followed Mu Jinghong's footsteps and entered in a single file. Just as Mu Jinghong and the others entered the array, Sumo arrived. She arrived at the same time. At this moment, the Selectant sect cultivators outside the Windmill Mountain were slightly hesitant, because they saw that Sumo was somewhat conflicted. In theory, they should have been able to stop Sumo. However, Mu Jinghong's words were still echoing in their ears. Who would dare to touch Sumo? I will kill whoever it is. Mu Jinghong had already killed a white bone core formation cultivator. A crazy woman like that would do anything. Who would dare to touch her reverse scale? Therefore, an interesting scene happened. Once Sumo arrived, the white bone sect cultivators hesitated for a moment before they automatically separated. No one dared to stop Sumo. This was an awkward and ironic scene. The life and death of the 5 wheels seemed to be in the hands of the white bone sect, but they had to make way for a 5-wheel disciple. Sumo did not know whether to be angry or relieved. However, Sumo was focused on chasing Mu Jinghong and did not care about these things. He directly plunged into the Windmill Misty Sea array. Windmill array. The moment Mu Jinghong stepped into the array, Bai Yifeng, who was sitting on the 7th peak, knew. However, Bai Yifeng really did not expect Mu Jinghong to actually come and challenge the array. The 5 wheels were in chaos, and it was enough for the Windmill sect to guard the Windmill Mountain. This was what Mu Jinghong had said previously. Why would Mu Jinghong come? Actually, regardless of Mu Jinghong's words, the Windmill sect would still guard the Windmill Mountain. No matter what happened to the 5 wheels, it was their mission to guard the Windmill sect. The Windmill sect was larger than the 5 wheels. Therefore, they had long cut off all external contact. The Windmill sect was waiting for Sumo. As long as Sumo could rush back to the Windmill Mountain within the agreed time, it would be fine, and this array would not stop Sumo. However, the Windmill sect was betting on Sumo's safe return. This was second Senior Brother's bet. This was also Windmill's bet. The only thing they were sure of was that second senior brother had never lost a bet in his entire life. And this time, he also won. Sumo had indeed returned. However, Mu Jinghong was one step ahead of her. Since she entered the array, it was fate. Seventh senior sister closed her eyes and continued to sit cross-legged. The windmill array would automatically operate. Different people would have different results when they entered the array. She wanted to see what kind of person Mu Jinghong was, and if Sumo returned, he would directly go to the 9th peak. As expected, Sumo rushed into the fog almost immediately after Mu Jinghong and the others. However, once Sumo entered the sea of fog, he lost his sense of direction. In front of him, the fog was so thick that he could not see anything clearly. It was a kind of green fog. This fog was actually thicker than the fog he encountered in the Silent Death Valley that day. Sumo spread out his divine sense, but he could not sense anything. Sumo's divine sense seemed to be interfered with or blocked by something. Moreover, Sumo instantly felt something jump in his mind, as if he was about to hallucinate. However, that feeling disappeared in an instant. This was because the green fog in front of him actually split into two. In the middle, there was a passage. Sumo did not hesitate and directly went along that passage. In the green fog, Mu Jinghong was long gone. However, after a while, Sumo actually saw his own windmill 9th peak. Sumo was slightly stunned. However, he still directly returned to the 9th peak. Everything seemed to be the same on the 9th peak. This was because the green fog passage actually sent Sumo directly to the windmill cosmic cave. At that moment, Sumo felt a little sluggish, as if he was not in control of himself. However, he knew that he was back. Sumo returned to the windmill cosmic cave. In an instant, the entire windmill faction let out a few long sighs. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Ha ha! Second senior brother even laughed towards the sky in the small building on the 2nd peak. Scholar Du, will definitely win every bet I make. I have no regrets in this life. No regrets in this life. Scholar Du was right. The last 8 words were slightly tragic, because he understood that this was the last bet of his life. At this moment, Mu Jinghong was in the vast green fog. Alone in the green fog, Mu Jinghong actually could not see the 17 ink soul death warriors that followed him. Chapter 175. The Sea of Stars was bright and dazzling. When Mu Jinghong stepped into the green mist, she could not help but be taken aback. This was because this green mist array had exceeded her expectations. Mu Jinghong was absolutely confident. She was fearless above the white bones. The last time she entered the Windwheel Mountain, the Windwheel array controlled by Yifeng could not trap her at all. As long as Mu Jinghong was willing, she could enter the Windwheel Mountain easily. She could come and go as she pleased. Although the green mist array before her was strange, Mu Jinghong understood. This array had to rely on the Windwheel array. Therefore, Mu Jinghong was not worried. Every step was in her heart. But the moment she entered the array, she discovered something strange. Because this was an illusory array, the 17 ink soul death warriors led by Shun Lang should be following her closely. But Mu Jinghong looked around blankly. There was no one around. That was impossible. Shun Lang knew Mu Jinghong's steps. The ink soul death warriors were well trained and would not make a wrong step. But at this moment, they could not see each other. The only explanation was that this was an illusion array. Everyone who entered the formation would fall into their own inner demon world. Once the inner demons were destroyed, they would exit the array. Otherwise, they would fall into their inner demons forever. Illusion arrays were the most powerful of all arrays. They were more powerful than ordinary trapping and killing arrays. Because illusion arrays often differed from person to person, an illusion array would make you die to your own inner demons. Therefore, it was not the array that was powerful, but your inner demons. It was like a dream. Dreams did not kill people, but they could lead you to death. That kind of damage was extremely terrifying, because it originated from the soul and divine sense. Illusion array. Mu Jinghong knew that she had entered an illusion array. because it was impossible for a sea of stars to appear on the Windwheel Mountain. But this was the terror of an illusion array. It was like being in a dream. Sometimes you knew you were dreaming, but you could not control your own dream, nor could you escape it. Mu Jinghong was in such a state. The sea of stars was dazzling. This was an illusion, because Mu Jinghong knew that the sea of stars no longer existed. It had been destroyed, but that sea of stars was too beautiful. It was the most beautiful sea of stars in vast universe. Mu Jinghong took a deep breath. In that case, let me see that galaxy again. A bitter smile appeared on Mu Jinghong's face. At this moment, she was already taking a risk. Not being able to overcome one's inner demons was a demon in itself. The sea of stars was resplendent and filled with endless starlight. Mu Jinghong felt as though he had passed through the sea of stars. Countless stars shone brightly. The star domain was vast and boundless. How many years, how much time? Mu Jinghong seemed to have seen some of the stars before, but he was unfamiliar with some of the stars. Mu Jinghong went from stupefied to pleasantly surprised, then from pleasantly surprised to sorrowful. A star with an ancient village on it. In the ancient village, the fragrance of flowers soared into the sky. It was quiet and natural, because the village was full of plum blossoms. Under the largest plum blossom tree, a couple snuggled up to each other. Countless petals scattered, soft and fluffy, all over the ground. The man had a peerless appearance, while the woman had a plum blossom mark on her forehead. In the distance, a little boy was jumping around innocently. "Mother, listen." The little boy suddenly stopped in his tracks and listened attentively. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of the guqin came from beyond the heavens. Slowly, it resounded throughout the entire sea of stars. "She's waiting for someone." The plum blossom girl smiled. "Her guqin will guide that person. But will that person come?" The little boy asked. "When will he come?" "Of course." The plum blossom girl smiled. "That person will definitely come. But I don't know when. Will he not come even if he dies?" The little boy continued to ask. The plum blossom girl smiled and shook her head. How could she explain to the child? She understood that all the waiting was worth it, because she had once waited in the cycle of reincarnation. "We will not die." The peerless man smiled and said, "Because our star domain is eternal." "Really? We are eternal?" The boy asked happily. "Yes," the peerless man answered. Then he looked into the distance and smiled faintly. "God of creation, grant us eternal life. Our will not die, because our star domain is eternal." These words echoed. Suddenly, the scene in front of Mu Jinghong disappeared, because at that moment, Mu Jinghong's eyes suddenly became bloodshot. Hee. Mu Jinghong laughed coldly, tears in her eyes. She suddenly felt an endless storm in her mind. Who said eternal life? Who lied to us? Eternal life. Who said eternal life? Who lied to us? Eternal life. There was a voice in Mu Jinghong's soul that was screaming in pain. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Everything in Mu Jinghong's eyes changed again. It was an endless sea filled with fragrance. There were countless lotuses above the sea. One flower, one world. The sea of stars was also within the lotuses. There was an endless whirlpool in the sea that sucked in water from all directions and destroyed the 40,000 lotuses. Success, existence, destruction, emptiness, the endless cycle of reincarnation was all above the sea. The eye of the wind wheel. Huh. Mu Jinghong laughed bitterly. Her eyes were already somewhat deranged. She saw a lotus with starlight falling directly into the huge whirlpool. When one lotus was destroyed, all worlds were destroyed. Boom, boom, boom. At that moment, Mu Jinghong seemed to see the destruction of the star domain. The entire world disappeared in the endless whirlpool. The guqin music disappeared, and the plum blossom scattered. Who was suppressing the entire star domain? Who was disturbing the peace of the sea of stars? Which world did the demonic cultivator come from? Why did the blood-colored rose bloom in the sea of stars? Countless people died. Countless stars were destroyed. White bones piled up like mountains. Black Robe became a demon again. That absolutely beautiful man wanted to fight for the sea of stars. Wait for me. One day, I will cross the sea of lotuses and return for you. That was a man's vow. Outside the ancient village, the most beautiful plum blossom gradually withered. All the petals were scattered. In the end, she turned into a withered tree that lasted for thousands of years. She waited for her husband to return. However, Black Robe never returned until that world was destroyed. A smear of black light, a smear of green light, a handful of red dust, a pile of white bones. Destruction, rebirth. Rebirth, destruction. Gazing at her husband, Jiang Yuyu, she turned into stone and never looked back. However, how could she only turn into stone? She had already turned into dust, into soil, into red dust, and into white bones. However, there was still no end to it. How many lives, how many lives, how many deaths? All the pain came like a tidal wave. Mu Jinghong should not have let her inner demon go. At that moment, Mu Jinghong held her head with both hands and looked like she was going crazy. Her eyes were completely bloodshot. The clothes on her body also began to gradually turn red. Her black hair began to be dyed like blood. At that moment, Bai Yifeng, who was sitting cross-legged on the seventh peak, suddenly changed her expression. What was that? Mu Jinghong was possessed by the inner demon and seemed to be turning into another person. Moreover, Mu Jinghong's cultivation level was changing. That was not the nascent soul realm. She was not even the soul transformation realm. The current Mu Jinghong had exceeded Bai Yifeng's understanding. Second senior brother, Bai Yifeng exclaimed. Change the formation. Du Shusheng, who was on the second peak, did not expect Mu Jinghong to change like that. Mu Jinghong's blood qi was soaring. He was unstoppable. Get ready, wind wheel empowerment. Du Shusheng shouted. That was because his intuition told him that once Mu Jinghong went berserk, they might not have a chance. Meanwhile, Guan Xiong, who was in the air, had completely put away his perverted expression. Bloodline awakening. Guan Xiong's expression became extremely ugly. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.